to call the meeting to order for the City Council and Successor Agency. Roll call, please. City Clerk?
Yes. Council members Rodriguez. She is not here at the moment, so absent. Council member Pacheco. And does not look like he is here at the moment. Council member Montanez.
Here.
All right. Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Ballin.
Present. And with that, we have a quorum. And City Clerk, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It's my honor to do so. If everyone will stand and place your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. I recommend that the City Council approve the agenda as presented and move that all ordinances presented tonight be read in title only as authorized under Government Code Section 36-934. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council member Rodriguez.
Here.
Oh, we're taking.
This is,
Go ahead, City Clerk.
yes, this is a motion to approve the agenda. Councilmember Rodriguez? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Montanez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza?
Yes.
Mayor Ballin?
Yes, the motion passes. At this time, I will request the city attorney to read the quorum and order in English, and the translator will read the quorum and order in Spanish. Mr. Padilla?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council, elected by the public, must be free to discuss issues confronting the city in an orderly environment. Public members attending City Council meetings shall observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to the City Council as set forth in the City Council Procedural Manual. Any person making impertinent, derogatory, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing the City Council or while attending the City Council meeting may be removed from the room if the presiding officer so directs the Sergeant of Arms, and such person may be barred from further audience before the City Council. That concludes the decorum reading, Madam Mayor.
Okay, our interpreter.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Buenas noches. El Consejo Municipal, elegido por el público, debe tener la libertad de discutir los problemas que enfrenta la ciudad en un ambiente ordenado. Los miembros del público que asistan a las reuniones del Consejo Municipal deberán observar las mismas reglas de orden y decoro aplicables al Consejo Municipal en su manual de procedimientos de San Fernando. Cualquier persona que haga comentarios despectivos o calumniosos, impertinentes, o que se vuelva bulliciosa mientras se esté dirigiendo al Consejo Municipal o mientras asista a la reunión del Consejo Municipal, puede ser sacada de la sala si el oficial que preside así se lo indica al sargento. Se puede excluir a dicha persona de seguir asistiendo a la audiencia ante el Consejo Municipal. This concludes the Spanish version of the decorum.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
I shall read the public statements first of the agenda. Members of the public may submit comments by email to cityclerk@sfcity.org no later than 5 p.m. the day of the meeting to ensure distribution to the City Council prior to consideration of the agenda. Comments received via email will be distributed to the City Council, read into the record, limited to 3 minutes, and made part of the official public record of the meeting. Callers interested in providing a live public comment may call in between 6 and 6:15 p.m. and will be limited to 3 minutes. The call-in period may be extended by the mayor. Madam Interpreter?
Yes, thank you. Los miembros del público pueden enviar comentarios por correo electrónico a cityclerk@sfcity.org a más tardar a las 5 de la tarde el día de la reunión, para asegurar su distribución al Consejo Municipal antes de considerar el orden del día. Esos comentarios se distribuirán al Consejo Municipal, se limitarán a 3 minutos y pasarán a formar parte del registro público oficial de la reunión. Las personas interesadas en proporcionar un comentario público en vivo pueden llamar al número de teléfono 669-900-6833. El número de identificación de la reunión es 833-6022-0211 y la contraseña es 924965. Entre las 6 de la tarde y las 6:15 de la tarde, en el orden de recepción, limitado a 3 minutos. El periodo de llamada puede ser extendido por el alcalde. That concludes the Spanish version of the public statement.
Very much.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and City Council members, there are public statements, and I shall begin reading the first one from Steve Garcia. Dear Mayor and Council members, I am Steve Garcia, 17-year resident. After listening to the council meeting on January 4th, 2021, I was very disappointed in Councilmember Cindy Montanez and her attempt to breach the Tesla contract. Without any analysis on the extent of liability, Montanez was willing to push the city into litigation without investigating whether that breach would cost the city $200,000 or cost $1 million. Zero analysis. A best guess or wild assumption. Best guess or wild assumption is not good enough. This project is currently costing the residents $0. Yet Councilmember Montanez is willing to breach that contract and put the city under a financial strain when the country is experiencing a financial crisis. To compound the irrational thinking, this breach of contract would be replaced with nothing, because nothing is proposed by a developer, nor is there a planned development for that property. The prudent thing to do is not to breach a contract when there is nothing to replace it with. Allow the project to be completed so that it can raise the property value and interest to potential developers. And if it benefits the city, allow the developer to incur the cost of any damages due to a breach. It certainly shouldn't be so that the city breaches it, incurs all the costs, so that a future developer gets a sweetheart deal with lower property values. Developer Zev Ashkenazi owns the adjacent property, was the verifying signature on the lawsuit filed against the city to stop the Tesla project, and per the January 4th, 2021 meeting, stated to a council member that he is interested in that property. Councilmember Cindy Montanez is willing to push the city into blind liability and push a no end to stop the Tesla project. I would like to remind the council that it is illegal to agree to exchange your opinion, recommendation, or vote for a benefit. When making decisions for the city, your loyalty should be only to the city. The second comment I have this evening is from Liliana Villanueva. I would like to know what members of council of our neighboring cities are doing to stop the spread of COVID. I've noticed the restrictions of dining in have lifted when I passed by Ceviche Sushi Bar on Hubbard, Silmar, noticing the cluster of people on their patio, not social distancing and maskless. Tables align where people are seated no more than 2 feet apart. Even the parking lot is crowded of cars and people every Friday and Saturday night. It is a reoccurring scene every time restrictions are lifted with safety measures or this particular shopping center is exempt from. Are inspectors being notified of this spreading ground? How many have not been reported or stopped? And this is the last written submitted public comment this evening. Julie Cuellar. Good evening, City Council members. I am reaching out to you because I need your help. I made a request for records to the city clerk on January 15th. Refer to the entire email thread below, which I can forward to you. I had not heard back from the city, so on the 12th day, last Thursday, I sent an email asking for an update. What I learned, past requests I made, is that California law states the city should promptly notify me within 10 days of receipt of request. See portion of law below, not day 11th, 12th, 13th. In other words, I had to remind the city to reply to my request. Code 7922.535.a, each agency upon a request for copy of record shall within 10 days from receipt of the request determine whether the request in whole and part seeks copies of disposable public records in the possession of the agency and shall promptly notify the person making the request of determination that the request seeks disposable public records. The agency shall also state the estimated date and time when the records would be made available. The clerk's response on Thursday was that the records were being collected and reviewed by police staff, and she would give me an update the following day, last Friday. As of this email, I have not heard back. We are now day 17. On Thursday, she apologized if the delay in records inconvenienced me and thanked me for my cooperation. I don't need an apology, just an update regarding my request for records, and I assume the request was clear, no questions from the city. It is the city who is not cooperating. Unfortunately, I am at the point where I felt I had to bring this to your attention and hope that I am not the only person experiencing this lack of response by the city when requesting records. Also, the agenda says to submit comments by 5 p.m., and people have told me sometimes their comments are not read at the meeting. I hope the city is not picking and choosing which comments to read and which to leave out. That concludes public statements.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your public statements. At this time, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Or are there items to be pulled for discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve consent, and just make the note that I'm really proud of the Master Mariachi Apprentice Program for all of its doing, and really glad to see this item on the consent agenda that we are supporting them for this National Endowment of the Arts grant, and really hope that they get it because they definitely deserve it. And so I strongly support that. I think all of us do. This community strongly supports it. And so I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a
I
second?
second.
Okay, second, Councilmember Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
and Mayor Ballin.
Yes. So we are now at the motion passes. We are now at administrative reports. Item 5, presentation and update regarding COVID-19 response efforts. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy City Manager Tim Howe will lead the discussion, and he's got a PowerPoint to walk us through.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. All right, can you see my presentation? All right. This is an update on response efforts to COVID-19. As of January 30th, these are the statistics that are available on the city's website. Countywide, 1.1 million cases to date, nearly 17,000 deaths. From the city of San Fernando, 4,743 cases, 46 deaths. And as a basis of comparison, back on December 5th, we had about 1,800 cases, and so we have added 3,000 in less than 60 days. The November 21st limited stay-at-home order for the state of California. That barred activities between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., in effect a form of a curfew. The regional stay-at-home order went into effect on December 3rd. That set as one of the important metrics ICU availability. Prohibited private gatherings of any size. Sector operations except for critical infrastructure and retail. Importantly, since the last time we provided this update last week, the regional stay-at-home order ended and counties returned to the blueprint for a safer economy tiers, the system that was in place as recently as around Thanksgiving. So going back to as a refresher for the blueprint, this was the county by county tier system and color coded as well. The darker colors are the more restrictive based on two major metrics, adjusted case rate and positivity rate. Within Los Angeles County, we did not previously advance beyond the first tier. And if we'll go back to November 2nd, this is what the state looked like. You saw a variety of tiers that the state was in, but you'll notice Los Angeles County remained in the most restrictive purple tier, tier 1. Fast forward to present day, and this is what the state looks like. Significant amount of purple here, and very limited counties that are actually outside of the most restrictive tier. Statewide metrics, you see a 12.4% positivity rate, and as an aggregate across the state, still 0% ICU availability. Within Los Angeles County, risk level remains widespread. You see a 48.2 adjusted case rate for tier assignment, 13.9% positivity rate. And as a refresher, in order to advance, so we're ultimately not anywhere close to being able to advance out of tier 1 into a less restrictive tier. We'd need to be down in the low to mid single digits on case rate and positivity rate. The county health officer order was revised on January 25th and then updated again on January 29th. In aggregate, the effect of those new orders reopened the following activities: private gatherings for a maximum of 15 people from 3 different households, the same household. All persons must continue to wear face coverings whenever outdoors. Outdoor, in-person, on-site dining at restaurants did reopen as of Friday, January 29th. And as of January 25th, the initial order personal care establishments were opened for indoor operations up to 25% capacity. City facilities, City Hall remains closed to the public currently. Las Palmas Park was only available as cooling centers over the summer. The swap meet permit renewal process is on hold, and importantly, vendors are allowed until February 28th to renew. COVID-19 testing opened at Recreation Park back on November 24th and is still available. On San Fernando Road, street closures were promoted throughout the summer and into the fall to provide space for outdoor services between Brand Boulevard and Maclay Avenue. And the timeframes for those were between Saturday afternoon through the evening and then all day Sundays. That was suspended as a result of the restrictions imposed around Thanksgiving time. Staff has conferred over the last several days as things have, regulations have changed with the San Fernando Mall Association for restart of these street closures. And the San Fernando Mall Association recommended some revised closure hours, shifting it about a day to close Friday for a Friday evening to reopen through traffic by early Sunday morning. and we're working on targeting February 5th as the possible restart of the road closures. COVID-19 City Parks open space service opportunity remains available. That program, as well as a number of other programs we've created during COVID-19, including outdoor service permit, temporary banner permits, those are available and have been extended through June 30th of this year. The food distribution program, we've conducted 3 rounds. And I believe there will be some further discussion as a result of the discussion at the ad hoc about additional potential distributions. The personal protective equipment for businesses program, we've had a distribution. The image there illustrates the items for distribution, essential items up to $125 in value, and I think that will be further discussed as well. There are some updates on at the state level in terms of tenant protections. The original Tenant Relief Act was AB 3088. Another follow-up bill, SB 91, was signed into law last Friday, and that extended protections that were set to expire at the end of January, and now extends it through June 30th of this year. In addition, it created a $2.6 billion state rental assistance program to assist income qualified tenants with unpaid rent. And I believe the threshold generally is 80% of area median income. And this is how the state is allocating some federal assistance funds. The LA County eviction moratorium, covering both residential and commercial tenants, is being extended at the county level, generally on a month-to-month basis, and so at this time, that's extended through the end of this month. Vaccines. The first vaccines were authorized for distribution in December. The state's phase 1 distribution began immediately to healthcare and nursing home workers. Phase 1, the first tier of phase 1B began on January 20th, I believe the day after our last council meeting, to persons aged 65 and older. And the latter tiers for phase B for essential frontline workers such as public safety officers, food and agricultural workers, manufacturing workers, grocery store workers, public transit, childcare, and schools and education remains estimated to begin February. There are discussions that arose last week about a potential shift in how the phasing is going to occur, with that shift being to have the next distribution tier being more age-based than industry-based. However, the guidance from the county, official guidance from the county has not yet changed. So giving you the heads up that they have signaled that there may be a shift. Vaccines, LA County residents 65 and older should be able to register for free COVID-19 vaccine appointments. The main website you want to go to is vaccinatelacounty.com, and you can call that number 833-540-0473. Now, due to the general scarcity of available vaccines and the available vaccines being prioritized for folks that are in the queue to receive their second and final dose of the vaccine, appointments for COVID-19 vaccines for that initial dose have been very limited over the last couple of weeks. The recommendation from the county is that folks interested in scheduling appointments check back at the website vaccinatelacounty.com on a daily basis as appointments may open up. However, just looking at the numbers, the numbers very limited, unfortunately, at this time, just in terms of an issue with supply of vaccines overall countywide. When you do have that opportunity, do remember to bring proof that you are an LA County resident and that you currently are of age, as the folks that are eligible right now are either healthcare workers or are age qualified, 65 and over. Points of dispensing sites. These are the major categories: public health points of dispensing, megapods as well. The closest location for this is California State University Northridge at their campus. And the next closest location would be in Santa Clarita at Magic Mountain. LA City Fire Department has points of dispensing. That includes Recreation Parks location, and you'll see it on the list listed as San Fernando Clinic, as well as community clinics, hospitals, and pharmacies. And staff is in communication with a number of these entities to better roll out and see what resources we have to better roll out access to vaccination to our community. LA County daily COVID-19 data updates, the daily number of persons tested. This data is going to reflect some rather favorable trends, albeit the numbers are still very, very significant. This first one is an example. You are seeing over the last several days a downward trend with the number of tests. However, in comparison to where we were as recently as October 31st, Halloween, our 7-day average for testing was 15,000. As of this latest data, it's 79,000. And total persons tested thus far, 5.5 million. Percentage of testing positive. This does show a favorable trend. Last time we reported this information, the 7-day daily average was 16.5%, and the latest data, we are down about 5 percentage points to 11.6%. Number of hospitalized patients. This is an important one, and you see this January 1st represented about 7,500 number of hospitalized patients. We capped out somewhere hovering around 8,000. Last time we reported this, we were actually on the downward side of the curve at 7,300, and we have some favorable numbers. Our latest numbers are about 5,300, so that is favorable news. However, obviously still a very high number overall. Daily number of deaths. This number, and deaths is a bit of a trailing statistical data point. Our latest number of January 31st is 124. The death rate, the mortality rate, which is the death rate looking at broken up by ethnicity and area of poverty, continues to climb and continues to demonstrate a disparate impact to people of color and to areas of relative poverty. And that concludes staff's presentation. We are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Thank you to staff. I think, what else can we say? We are going on a year of this pandemic, and it's continuing to grind forward. I want to thank staff for being diligent and acquiring and compiling all this data for us, because our decisions should always be data informed and reasonable based on analysis. And I'm very scared still. I'm very afraid of the future that we have, but as long as we're in this together and working together and putting forward sensible policies, sensible initiatives, there's nothing that we can't do. There's nothing we can't accomplish. There's nothing we can't overcome. And so, like what Mr. Howe kind of referenced in his presentation, the trend is definitely our friend. Things are getting better, but there's still so many facts. And I could open up this question to Mr. Kimball or the rest of staff. But could you kind of just reiterate for us what you're hearing from the county and from the state as to the precautions that people still need to be taking, regardless of the fact that, the vaccines are being rolled out. The trend is definitely getting better. But if you can maybe just touch on some of these common sense things that they're still reiterating for us to keep, an eye on for the benefit of our watchers here.
Sure, I'll start, and then Tim, if you have anything to add. But really, I guess from a precautionary standpoint, nothing's changed as far as how to protect yourself and how to protect others. There's still the social distancing. There's still wearing a mask anytime you're in public. Wash your hands often. Disinfect your area, and really just try to limit your exposure to people outside of your household. So those are all really the best things that we all can do to sort of limit the spread of from household to household, person to person. At least until for these next few months, as the vaccine becomes more prevalent. And I can give a vaccine update in a little bit, just as far as what the city's efforts have been specifically. I think that we have, and I've heard some, from the CDC, I'm sure we've all seen the same news, really, we're looking at the summer when there can be enough vaccines that are produced and distributed in a wide enough net cast where we can start kind of loosening, I guess, the way that we're acting from a social distancing standpoint. So,
Okay.
Nothing's really changed since.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the more positive outlook as far as the positivity rate and the hospitalization and so forth, those don't necessarily reflect the vaccine yet, right? Is it just like the normal expected downturn now that the holidays are over?
Yeah, that was very expected. I mean, if the vaccine is making any dent, it's a very minimal dent. Most of the data that's put forth are 7-day averages to kind of smooth out. So really, you're looking at an average over the last 7 days. So most of the people that have received the vaccine up through now are really healthcare workers. So obviously, that's a really good thing. But through today, I think I'd seen just under a million folks had received their first dose. Some have received their second. So, there may be some of that in the data, but the by and far, the data is really driven more by, the second stay-at-home order where people were social distancing and cleaning their hands.
Yeah. And maybe, there was a little bit of fear in us and we kind of rejiggered everything and kind of refocused on, the precautions that we were supposed to take. And then my final question, and I know we had this in the presentation earlier, but I'm sure we all received the email from Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles with their sign-up system. And, the body of his email was basically, look, you don't have to try to scour the internet trying to figure out when and how and where to get a vaccine. I think the sign-up through, the LA County should be relatively, it's supposed to be helpful in that way, right? Are we still kind of encouraging people to still, check the website regularly, or are they getting proper alerts once they sign up for their time to get a vaccine?
Yeah, so if from my understanding of the system, LA County, the whole state is going to a different online system called My Turn. So if LA County has already implemented it, so if you go to myturn.com, you can go and sign up. That being said, it's not necessarily, you may not get an appointment time if there aren't any appointments available.
Right.
But register for the website and they will send you alerts if you are on that list. I guess the one caveat is, quite frankly, there are hundreds of thousands of people registered for that list, and once in a while, maybe 1,000 at the end of a day sort of pop up new. So you really have to be jumping on there really quickly after you get that email, because they do tend to get taken pretty quickly. But that shouldn't discourage anyone. Definitely sign up because, I do think in the next couple of weeks, I've heard some discussions about the Biden administration really kind of ramping up production. So I think many of the county officials are really hopeful that we should start to get a significant amount of additional vaccine. Maybe not next week or the week after, but as we head into mid to late February, so we should have more and more opponents available.
And I guess, could I ask the interpreter maybe to just translate a very simple sentence into Spanish using the right words about, check the website myturn.com for news on the vaccine? Could she do that just to kind of say a statement, to our viewers? Is that okay? Or
well, the interpreter actually disconnected. She disconnected.
Oh, she's not on right now?
Yeah, after the public section. But if there, we can have a staff. I believe Diego's on there on the line. If you would like him to make a statement in Spanish, about he can work on. Maybe he can think about it until the end of the council comments. But in general, if it's
Yeah, I won't put him on the spot. That's fine. Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez?
Thank you, Tim, for that presentation. I just had one question. At our last meeting, this came up too about us following up on ways we can support stopping the spread in our community, recognizing that we're high and it might potentially be related to things that we can intervene on, like large households and small quarters. Is there any follow-up to that? So that I know we're going to have a couple of discussions even about our CDBG resources, and that just might provide some valuable insight into how we're going to spend those.
Yeah, I would defer to that conversation, but an important point that you note, one of the items that was discussed at the last meeting, for example, was, household members that can't quarantine at home because they have a number of, a sizable number of household members that live with them. So yeah, that's absolutely something we want to continue discussing and seeing if we have any resources to address things of that nature.
Yeah, I think in Councilmember Rodriguez, just to add to that, there was actually in the ad hoc, and we can get to it in the CDBG discussion, but there was a really good idea of just including maybe in residential distribution, like a shower curtain or some other divider that we might be able to place in those, some of those, which I think is a great idea. Obviously any sort of barrier is better than nothing. So, we'll continue to work through that. And I think as we talk through it in CDBG, and obviously that's difficult, right? Because there's a lot of sort of private, reasons why people want to, stay at home versus go somewhere else. But we'll continue. Obviously, we're open to any suggestions, and we'll continue to kind of ping our colleagues in other cities to see if there's any ideas that anyone else has sort of come up with on assisting with that social distancing or quarantining in a very small space.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And yeah, I think, I was just hoping that if there was anything else other than the idea that we talked about, like shower curtains, or I don't know if, to your point, let's talk to people in other cities, especially in smaller cities who might be seeing the same issues. Because I think everyone's being creative, right? And if we can do something that we know is working and help those households, it would be great. And that's all my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Montanez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have a few questions I've asked in the past. And so if we could include these in ongoing reports, I think it would be really helpful. Number one, do we know how many residents from the city of San Fernando have received the vaccine at our location? And
go ahead. I'll write these down if you have a few, and then I'll respond.
Okay, so that way we get an update specifically on how our pod is doing relative to residents in the city of San Fernando. The other question is, and if we could have it in the report too, is attendance at the swap meet. I know we discussed last time they ranged from 5,000 to like 8,000. if we could have that number, what the latest was, it's like the last, since the last meeting, and if things have taken place to address that super spreader location in the city. Go ahead, Tim.
If I may, so I didn't want to include this in the general update, but I do have information related to the swap meet to address some of the questions and the discussion from last council meeting. So I'm happy to provide that update whenever appropriate.
Okay. And the other is that I heard from a resident, older, almost 90, they went to get the vaccine, yay, but it was on Thursday, unfortunately, the day was raining, Wednesday or Thursday. And they, two things, they weren't aware that there was an actual line for people that have disabilities. And in that line, apparently 65 and over can get into that line and they don't have to wait in the long line. So I wanted to confirm that that's indeed the case and that I could share that information with seniors 65 and over, or that the city can share that information with seniors 65 and over, that when they go get the vaccine, instead of waiting in line outside, they could actually go to a shorter line and go faster, because one of the wife actually had a walker, and then the husband, you know, he was okay, but the daughter had to try to really help and push. And then so finally, after waiting, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so, one of the individuals that works there actually told her, oh, well, you should have gone to the other line. So she wasn't made aware of that until after 45 minutes of her parents, who are almost 90, waiting in line on a rainy day. So if that is the case, can we make that more public at the location so seniors know where to go as they're getting their vaccine? I think it would be really helpful. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll go ahead
Okay.
and finish.
The other thing is, have we reached out to, followed up with the owners or at Vallartas to see what we can do as we go into phase 1B in other grocery stores, right? I know that they're ready to work with us to get their frontline workers the vaccine. They are, as we know, exposed every day. And that's one of the places where we all have to go or order from is grocery stores. So highly exposed, and a lot of the people that do go into the grocery stores tend to be women, Latinas, and some maybe in that high risk categories. So I think it's important to try to do everything we can to just facilitate having that also be grocery stores be a safe space for our community. Not everybody goes to other locations, but definitely most people are still going to the grocery stores. And I find that especially the immigrant community is not as familiar with Instacart or deliveries services like that. So people actually go in person. And in addition to meeting with an entity like Vallartas, have we talked to the Northeast Valley Health Clinic? And if so, how have those conversations gone? I think that they could be really helpful just based on the population that they serve. They're serving, I think, the population that also is very high risk and lower income and doesn't necessarily have access to other, traditional healthcare. So they go to the community clinic, and it's really hard. We don't want our community ending up in the hospitals, especially like in the emergency room. So any follow-up that we have conversations with Northeast Valley, especially Northeast Valley Health Clinic, but it could be others as well.
Sure. So let me go through a few of these. So first, with regards to the data on the residents of San Fernando, the testing and vaccinating at the San Fernando site, I've actually had a number of conversations with the chief in charge of that site, asking him for that data. They've actually, over the last week and a half, have been going through sort of a system-wide transition from testing to vaccination, specifically at the at the Dodger Stadium. I'm sure many people heard that was testing 10,000 people a day, and they completely transitioned that over to a vaccination site. So a lot of their resources were focused away from the data mining. So he's going to start getting me regular reports on testing to the extent that he can get, the total numbers by zip code. The vaccination, he did indicate that they actually don't keep the zip code data on the vaccination, or the problem with the zip code, the vaccination is that that's more of a health record. So there were some issues he had to work through on the HIPAA requirements, because that is creating a health record when you do the vaccination. So he was working through that data. I did share with him that that's something that is very interesting to our community and our city council, and something that we need to start sharing to show them sort of the community benefit and the results locally. So I don't have any data today, but I have put that request out, and he does understand the importance of getting both the testing and to the extent that he can do some vaccination data, that vaccination data, without running afoul of HIPAA. With regards to the grocery stores and the Northeast, the health clinic, Northeast Valley Health Clinic. So I did want to take a few minutes to kind of go over some of our efforts over the last, week and a half or so with regards specifically to the vaccination. Again, pursuant to council kind of direction on January 19th, staff drafted a letter to Supervisor Kuehl's office, really just requesting additional resources, testing and vaccination resources, specifically in San Fernando, but also, Pacoima and Sylmar and surrounding communities, which quite frankly are all of those communities are the top 10 most affected in all of LA County from a case rate per 100,000 standpoint. So that was sent over. We also, as Tim had mentioned, it's a very fluid situation as far as vaccines go, and how the state is kind of changing their requirements. So right now it is occupation-based, healthcare workers, and then a little bit of his age base with individuals over 65. I've heard there are two efforts. One is to go to completely age-based. So there wouldn't be sort of an occupation-based. So the grocery store worker, so to speak, would not necessarily be a qualifying occupation. It would just be age-based. The second initiative that I've heard is that could be location-based. So age-based, and if you're in a highly impacted community such as San Fernando, Sylmar, if you live in there, regardless of age, if your location is there, then you would also qualify for a vaccine. So so we've reached out to our state legislators, both our Senator Hertzberg and Assemblymember Luz Rivas, to strongly support any sort of location-based vaccination qualification, because we have, because then that would open it up to any residents in the Northeast Valley to be eligible. So we're supporting if there is a policy change in that way. I believe the city council sent that message to all of our legislators. And we've also kind of been working to, I've talked to both San Fernando Community Hospital, which is a federally qualified health clinic in San Fernando, and we have a good working relationship. They're actually a tenant of the city's, and the Providence Holy Cross, who both of them have indicated a desire to work with us on vaccinating local residents. Again, the biggest issue is they don't have any supply. The vaccine just is not, there isn't sort of that additional, there's not that chain of, there's not that supply chain that's getting out mass quantities of vaccine. But that being said, they're both going to work with us now on, seeing if we can start setting something up. We've had other local nonprofits that have reached out that we're meeting with. LA Care was one that we're meeting with to see if there's a possibility there. We have reached out to the Northeast Valley Health Center, and we're still waiting to hear back, on partnership with them. But we are trying to cast that net wide on anyone that will want to work with the city, especially to get our residents make sure that our residents have the opportunity as soon as
Nick, you keep breaking up.
oh
Just to let you know, so before we go on to our
yeah,
next
all right.
topic, I want to make sure you're.
Do I have to say that all over again?
No, we made it out, but I just
Is
letting
that
you
a little
know.
better? I might have been too far away
Yeah.
from my computer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's better.
With regards to the line, I will find out about the line for people with disabilities. Making sure that's much better there's better signage there so people understand it better. And B, I'll just confirm whether or not it's 65 or older can go in that line. If that's so, I'll make sure that that's clear on that signage as well. And then I think with regards to Tim had a good conversation today with the swap meet, so I will let him go over some of that information.
Now, just a quick clarifying question. Did Sheila Kuehl's office, the supervisor, respond to our letter, or have we not heard back from them?
They responded that they've received it. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things that are still fluid and a lot of discussions that they're having at the county level that they didn't necessarily provide any policy direction at this point. I will continue to reach out to them to see if there are any updates and reiterate that are the city council's request or the city's request to really get additional resources in our offer to, staff and whatever they need, from our perspective.
Yeah, because I mean, as of today, San Fernando is the worst in terms of rate case.
Mhm.
So there is no other city. Last time we had a meeting, we were the second worst right after the city of Vernon. Now we are the absolute worst in terms of our rate case. So we haven't done better. We've actually positioned ourselves to be worse. And I think that it's important for the supervisor's office to respond. I mean, immediately, every day is a life and death situation for people that are being infected or potentially going to be infected. And I really feel like our community is being ignored. There was a big article in the New York Times. San Fernando hasn't come out in the New York Times, but Pacoima and San Fernando were covered in the New York Times because our cases are so bad. So that's not the reason we want to be coming out in newspapers is, because we can't get it together. And we really need the county's help to make sure that communities that are most impacted have the resources, the vaccines, the testing, and attention. We're just not a location for people to come in and just use our services and leave without people in San Fernando actually being also recipients of the vaccine. We are the worst in terms of rate case today. So we should be prioritized.
Yeah, and we'll continue. I'll follow up on a daily basis to see what we, to continue to push that message.
Thank you.
Oh, and Tim, if you can follow up on the swap meet questions.
Sure, happy to provide that update now. Based on the conversation with the council at the last council meeting, staff contacted the swap meet. We expressed the council and staff's deep concern about potential spread and efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19 at the swap meet. As everybody knows, council implemented additional operational requirements on swap meets in the city back on August 3rd of last year. And the December 27th health officer order from the county updated the protocols for the swap meets, including max overall capacity, workplace policies and practices, and measures to ensure physical distancing and infection control. In this discussion, staff requested the swap meet to provide data on a number of different metrics: number of total confirmed staff cases testing positive, number of total confirmed non-staff cases testing positive, number of known deaths of staff or vendors, operational measures to comply with the, at the time, 20% capacity limit, the number of vendor booths open, the number of reported clusters to LA County Department of Public Health of 3 or more cases identified within a span of 14 days, and the number of staff and vendors or non-staff removed from the swap meet due to non-compliance with the requirements. In response to that request, the swap meet provided the following information. In terms of number of total confirmed staff cases testing positive for COVID-19, they responded that they have had 4 cases since they reopened on July 14th. 2 of those cases occurred in the summer, 1 occurred in the fall, and another that recently occurred. Their insurance, their workers' comp insurance notified them that the staff reported that they had contracted the virus from family members and not from colleagues. The number of total confirmed non-staff cases testing positive, the number over since July is 6. They do note this number is difficult to verify as they're relying on third parties to provide that information. The number of known deaths of staff or vendors, they have not lost any staff members. And this month they were informed that 1 vendor did pass away. However, there's no confirmation what the cause of that death was, so they cannot confirm that that was a COVID-19 related death or not. Operational measures to comply with the capacity limit, and they are capping total occupancy at approximately 2,000 individuals. And they installed, they're utilizing a tracking technology on tablets to track attendance at each moment. Managers are able to view the attendance numbers and on their smart devices and receive alerts. Staff is trained to log every single person who enters the premises into the tracker system. When a health inspector arrives, they show them tablets and attendance at the time, and the total capacity number includes vendors and shoppers. That means that they're actually allowing a smaller number of actual shoppers, which they cap at 1,800 on site at any given time. And they're operating at this decreased number despite, the availability, including within the latest update to the health order that actually allows them to increase their capacity up to 25% from 20. However, they're not taking advantage of that at this time. They don't plan to anytime soon and maintain this level of capacity. In regards to the number of vendor booths open, they have 330 available spaces for rental. The average number of spaces during the week that are actually rented is at about 180. The only day when it reaches that 330 number is on Sundays. They thought it was important to note that county rules do not require them to limit the number of vendors, and that is a measure that they are taking, however. In terms of number of reported clusters to LA County Department of Public Health, and these are required to be reported when there are 3 or more cases identified within a 14-day period. Based on the information shared early in the earlier data, that number is none. The number of staff, vendors, or non-staff removed from the swap meet due to non-compliance. They've had multiple written warnings issued. That's for the first step in their in their response to non-compliance. Their second step is to remove a vendor for the day for non-compliance. That is the second step, and that has occurred to 4 vendors. And the third step is for vendors to permanently lose their priority spaces, and that has occurred to 2 vendors. In addition, staff and management from the swap meet met and had a discussion today following up on this information and to address the ability to implement additional measures. Additional measures discussed were addressing the queuing that occurs due to the capacity being maintained inside of the swap meet, and demand, especially on the weekends, exceeding that and resulting in a queue, a line of folks that are waiting to enter the swap meet once folks exit. We discussed that and a number of measures that they have taken back, and they're talking internally about when and how they can implement some additional measures to address that. Those may include reducing and cordoning off portions of the parking. In terms of another issue that was raised, which is with vendor behavior in terms of what they call closeout tables. The worst offenders of this type of practice is basically they bring a number of items and they lay them out, spread them out on a table, and in the worst case scenarios, that can create a little bit of a customer frenzy and especially tight groupings of customers hovering around one particular location. We've talked about measures they can take to ban that practice for an extended period of time to discourage that type of activity. So they are working through a plan on looking to implement some measure like that, as well as addressing some of the other issues related to those weekend capacity days. And at this time, like I mentioned earlier, they remain committed to maintaining that capacity limit despite, as we move forward, indefinitely, although the latest county regulations have allowed them to a minor increase in capacity.
And can you repeat those attendance numbers again? Did you say that?
Yes, their attendance. So at any given time, their attendance numbers at any given time within the swap meet is approximately 2,000, and of that, it's 1,800 which is the customers that are being admitted, and every customer counts as a customer. Even small children are counted as a distinct customer as well.
Okay, so then when they were up at the 5,000 plus, they weren't in compliance, or they didn't have to comply?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
When they were at the 5,000 plus in attendance, they weren't under they weren't under any regulations or restrictions at that time.
That's not correct. So those are two different data points. The data points are related. One is total number of attendees entered through an entire day period. The other number is basically attendance at any point in time within the swap meet. And so that is the capacity limit that is meaningful in terms of the county regulations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what's total attendance?
I'm sorry?
What ends up being the total attendance?
The total attendance, so I can get you those updated numbers. I have the numbers for earlier in January, but I can provide an updated number.
Okay, thank you.
And
okay,
I apologize, just one more note that I neglected to mention earlier. LA County Public Health, they have conducted multiple inspections of their own of the swap meet, and they have issued, they provide an inspection report. They have been there a number of times over the last 30, 40 days, including, and they have passed their latest health inspection with no corrective actions, no further action or corrective actions required, and that was last month in January.
Okay. I must have gone on Sundays multiple Sundays when they were pretty crowded in January. So maybe it cut. I didn't pass by this weekend, so maybe it was less this weekend. And if they are limiting the attendance or dropping it, that's good. That's what we want to see, because I know that the days that I drove by, it was like a normal day of operation. So okay, so I appreciate that. Okay, and then the last thing is just Stanford Health reached out, and I did have a conversation with them. And Nick, if it's okay, I'm gonna put them in contact with you. They actually have really great information in Spanish on testing and vaccines. So like free PSAs and other information that maybe if I provide to you or you follow up on that contact, the city could send out through our text alert and our email system. It's just really great stuff, and it's free, it's available, and it's produced by Stanford.
Yes, definitely, please.
Okay, great. Okay, and then I did want to clarify that the website is myturn.ca.gov, right? So myturn.ca.gov, and that'll get people the opportunity to find out when it's your turn. So thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Sorry, I was looking at my notes. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the update on the swap meet, because that has been an area of concern, I think, for many of us and many residents. You know, we do want to make sure that everyone that goes there is safe and that we're not increasing the spread of the virus. I do have some things that I've spoken with Mr. Kimball about in terms of the mobile, possibly having some mobile testing. I know you've looked into it. Maybe you can speak a little bit on that, because I would like to see if we could get the mobile testing for our senior housing, and maybe for Las Palmas, the senior club, where, because they can't, these people, the older generation is unable to stand for long periods of time. They need a chair. They need to walk from their car to the testing, to the vaccination area, and maybe sit down by the time they get there. So in any way that we can help accommodate our seniors would be great. And let's see. And I know we've discussed reaching out to our other resources in the city, to like our clinics, our doctor's offices, dental offices, because they can provide the vaccination to residents as well. And I think that if we're ready when the vaccine is available, I think that we'll be in a much better place. If we do plenty of planning right before we have all these locations who possibly will consider to buy in and be a part of that, be a part of the solution for us in our community. But councils, appreciate all the questions everybody has, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. You reminded me just one thing, that one of the sort of a PSA. One of the things that that the county and other healthcare providers have really recommended is contacting your own healthcare professional. I know, like Kaiser Permanente, for example, was getting some direct doses. So if you have a primary, if Kaiser is your healthcare provider, you may be able to schedule, if not right now, but they may get another shipment in a few weeks. You may be able to go in, and again, that might help some of our elderly residents or residents that don't want to go out and stand in line, or just aren't able to, where they can go to a more familiar spot in their own physician. So again, it's kind of a fluid situation, but I think ultimately that's where we're kind of similar to the flu shot. That's the idea, is that you go to a place that's a little more convenient for you. And I believe Diego, the Director of Finance, is going to read from the myturn.ca.gov website, and he can kind of make that little announcement in Spanish so that people can know where to pick it up. So go ahead, Diego.
Hey, Nick, if it's okay, good evening, City Council and Mayor and Vice Mayor. If it's okay, I'd like to read it in English and then translate it into Spanish, if that's okay. So this is from the California Department of Public Health, and it starts out with, find out if it's your turn. While COVID-19 vaccine supply is still limited, California is prioritizing vaccines for specific groups based on exposure risks, health risks, and health equity. My Turn is where you can find out if it's your turn to get vaccinated and schedule vaccination appointments. If it's your turn yet, you can register to be notified when you become eligible. This is a pilot site. Healthcare workers and individuals 65 in Los Angeles and San Diego counties can book appointments immediately. Online appointment scheduling for other groups and residents of other counties will be available soon. That website, as Councilmember Montanez mentioned, is myturn.ca.gov, spelled myturn.ca.gov. And this is the Spanish version. Del Departamento de Salud del Estado de California. Descubra si es su turno. Aunque el suministro de la vacuna COVID-19 todavía está limitado, California está reservando vacunas para grupos específicos según los riesgos de exposición, riesgos de salud y equidad sanitaria en nuestras comunidades. Trabajadores de salud y individuos de 65 años o más de los condados de Los Ángeles y San Diego pueden reservar sus citas de vacunación inmediatamente. Reservas de citas de vacunación en línea para otros grupos de residentes de otros condados estará disponible. Este sitio web está, lo voy a deletrear.
Diego, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you could just go a little closer to your speaker. I think you're cutting out a little bit. It might be a little easier to hear. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Better.
El sitio web el sitio web para MyTurn es myturn.ca.gov or myturn.ca.gov. That concludes the translation.
Thank you very much, Diego. There's a couple of council members that, and as well as the city manager, that tunes into that conference call with Dr. Farrar once a week. And one of the biggest problems, pretty much what the city manager said, is there's lack of vaccine. Everyone has the best of intentions, and they just don't have enough vaccine to go around, especially this is the time that the health workers are getting their second vaccine. Now, I am concerned that we all get the vaccine, but I would like to see the priority for cancer patients, special needs patients, transplant patients. There's such a demand and a need. It's just unfortunate that we don't have the vaccine to do that. And I want to say for those many seniors have called me up and they're concerned and they're worried and they don't want to get the vaccine. They've heard a lot of horror stories about the vaccine. I assured them I received the vaccine the day our last council meeting. The notice went out that the vaccine was available to 65 and over. And I was lucky enough to get an appointment for myself and my husband. And I'll get my second vaccine on Valentine's Day. You do feel queasy the next day or two, and make sure when you get that vaccine, don't get it on the arm you sleep on, because it does hurt. So I don't have any questions, but I just want to share that information, and I encourage everyone to get that vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, when that comes out. It's just unfortunate the system has crashed when people have tried to register for the vaccine. Why? I was lucky that day to get 2 appointments. I'll never understand, but I lucked out. And I'm very grateful. So with that, if there's any other questions, yes, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that in that telebriefing by the LA County, there is a number to call if you find someone is not in compliance, such as the public comment. And the number to call for non-compliance to LA County is 888-700-9995. And they can call anonymously. And there's also online, they can go to LA County and complete a complaint form as well if they find anyone might be in violation, and they will check them out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate it. And thank you all for your great questions and the information shared by Tim and Nick. Now we're going to move on to our next agenda item but I'd like to say before this agenda item, 2 things. I'd like to limit our questions for the first round to 15 minutes each to give each of us an opportunity to ask questions. And at that point, I'm really hopeful we can go through the entire agenda. If we're not able to, we will have to adjourn and meet again on Wednesday. But I'm really hopeful we can get through the entire agenda. And I'm just reminding you that if you could just try to limit your first round of questions to 15 minutes, I would be very grateful. The staff would be very grateful. And with that, let's see here. Item 6 is a presentation and discussion of the draft community outreach plan by Azure. Excuse me, City Clerk, would you keep tabs on the time for each council member? 15 minutes for each of us to ask our first round of questions?
So you're asking for 15 minutes total?
Per council member.
15
I want to
minutes
just
per
make sure
council
that everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. We don't lose our audience, and this will give us opportunity for the first round of questions. And
Okay, will
anyway,
do. Thank you.
thank you. So again, item 6 is a presentation and discussion of the draft community outreach plan by Azure Development Inc. for the opportunity site at parking lot number 6. Nick, would you like to introduce our guests?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to let Tim do the pleasure of introducing the guests, and then we'll let them give their presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ballin and council members. I'd like to introduce the city's economic development advisor, Ken Hira from Cosmont Companies, and Vanessa Delgado from Azure Development, who will be taking it away. Ken, please.
Tim, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. As Tim mentioned, as a economic development advisor, Cosmont Companies has been working with the city of San Fernando for quite some time. Really, I was looking back just historically. We embarked on a downtown and asset analysis, if you will, starting at the end of 2018. And spent a fair amount of time in 2019 coming up with sort of some strategic approaches, if you will, and this is collaborative with city staff, city council members in the community, coming up with some collaborative approaches to real estate development and opportunity sites and some of the parking lots within the downtown. And in that process, we, just to give a little history, issued a request for qualifications and proposal. And that, by the way, had community input. We did a community workshop in September of 2019. And so we went to sort of the market with an RFQ, an RFP, request for qualifications and proposal on Lot 3 for redevelopment. And 2020, believe it or not, we spent time, even though we were in the middle of this pandemic, basically working with the development company, Azure, in that process to negotiate an exclusive negotiating agreement, and again, share that information and the terms of that agreement with City Council, so that that ENA, exclusive negotiating agreement, has been executed in August of 2020, and the sort of due diligence process has embarked, and that's on the site. I'll say a couple more words and then I'll probably turn it over to Vanessa Delgado, but just so you know, since August, we've had a series of milestones that we've been sort of diligently working toward that's attached or affixed to the ENA, which includes, pro formas and concept plans and community outreach plans. So where we're at today, as we've been dialoguing with Azure, that staff and the development partner, we've been every couple of weeks in communication on status and trying to achieve those hurdles and those milestones. And so we've made a bit of progress. We're about 6 months into that ENA. The ENA in total lasts for 1 year. And there's the ability for city manager to extend for 2 6-month periods. But as we sit in the middle of that ENA period in month 6, what of course is very important is the community outreach plan. So the focus of tonight anyways is to vet that plan with you all, obviously give you sort of this background and project update, and then get your direction ultimately to kind of continue down that path with the community outreach plan and actually implement that. And so I think I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa now. She can speak about the plan and maybe give context with respect to the project itself. And again, Ken Hira with Cosmont Companies. If you have any questions, I'm certainly available.
Great, thank you, Ken. It's nice to see all of you virtually. I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to present the draft community outreach plan. It's an exciting milestone for us. This is actually my favorite part of development, is getting some real live feedback as to a possible project. So I do have a PowerPoint. I think it's been included in your package, but if that's okay, Tim and Ken, can I share that now and just go through it? Just so you know, I will go through the presentation rather quickly because you do have it. But so we have plenty of time for questions. I can always go back to any of these slides, but I'm gonna share my screen.
Excuse me, we have it, but the public doesn't have it. And we want to make sure that the public sees it, absorbs it. And so that would be really good. If you don't need to go quick, we want them to see the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So here is the outreach plan. It's a draft until you've had a chance to make your comments. The second page is really just a statement about how important community outreach is to development. For our firm, we actually consider this the start of a project. So whether or not we have a concept in mind that we think might work, that's all just a draft until the community has a chance to let us know what they think. For us, a community outreach plan and for this project really needs to answer the questions that we have here. And these are 14 questions that we think are important. We're happy to add any additional feedback that you have. Again, this is parking lot 3. And our proposal is that we start March 1st and try to answer everything from a name, a logo concept, the design, what people like as far as what works in downtown and what can we model, what proposed land use components work, meaning should we include housing, should we include retail, should we include office, should we include none of that and do open space. So we will include those. Also, we wanted to know a lot about where people currently shop. And what's missing, what can we add at this site that will add to the downtown and not take away from anything that's there. If people want housing, what price points, how should people be selected, what's the number of units that's appropriate for the site. And then we spend a lot of time asking about amenities and green space and parking and what other uses we need to include. For me, it's very important to also include information about local hiring and small business inclusion. We are a small business, minority and women-owned, so those opportunities are important to me. So the plan is really 7 components. From March to June, we're going to implement this plan with your feedback, obviously. So we start with something called stakeholder meetings, and we'll go through that. Phone outreach, town hall meetings, but they're going to be on Zoom, digital engagement, a project hotline, small and local business engagement, and door-to-door outreach. And the first piece really begins with stakeholder meetings. I can go into as much detail as you like as to our list on this. That really begins right away. From neighborhood watch captains to any organization that's already established in the city. And at their convenience, we will arrange either a virtual or a social distance outdoor setting meeting between March and June. And we'll invite anybody to participate that would like. Right now, I think our list has about 27 groups, and they will be asked the same type of questions that we would on a town hall meeting, but it's just a way for people to have more direct contact with us and give us their feedback. So the second most important item for us is phone banking. And the reason this is so important is because we like to go door to door, but it's not safe to do that during the pandemic. So we're going to begin with March and April being a phone banking exercise and really try to get to residents and ask them all these questions using the digital survey and same format that we do with the stakeholder meetings. So we're going to be doing this by buying lists from political data services or any lists that are generally available for the city. We can also do this by text. Town hall meetings, we're going to have 2 town hall meetings, one in the evening and one on a weekend, probably a Saturday in April. To give, I know you're doing the park meetings right now, so we want to separate ourselves from that so that we don't overload people with meeting requests. It's going to be Spanish and English, so we'll have translating service for whoever needs it. And these will be completely digital. And it's really a chance to let people ask any questions that they like about the project, but also guide them through the same questions that I outlined in the beginning of the presentation. That's a picture of me at a town hall meeting. I do look kind of angry there, but I promise you it will be a pleasant experience for everybody at the meetings. Okay, so digital engagement is really important. So we are actually trying to engage all age groups. And so digital engagement is really how we get to millennials and the youth. And so we are going to use social media to really get the survey out there in digital form. We use a format called type form. That's just TYPE and then form. That allows us to make sure that only one survey is being filled out per computer. It allows us to send it by text and then to track what's going on with the survey. So for example, if we know that Mayor Ballin is super excited about the survey and sends it to all of her friend groups on Facebook, we can see that she has really helped to get out the message. So it really just helps to make sure that we understand where the engagement is coming from and if we're not getting to the right audiences. We're going to have this information also available on our website. There'll be a project page. It's not there right now because we want everything to launch March 1st. Oh, just disclaimer, on the digital surveys, we do offer a gift card drawing. So that's how we get people excited. We encourage them to use it in downtown San Fernando. We cannot force them. You don't need to enter there's no entry. It's not because it's not considered a raffle or anything like that. But that's how we get people to respond. When we do this, we usually get thousands of responses. So that's our goal, is to collect at least 1,000 surveys. We do have a project hotline, but not too many people use it nowadays. And it's basically just like a frequently asked questions database, and will take you to our office. So I usually try to have it go to my information to me directly, just because not a lot of people use this service. So it's a nice way to hear directly what people are saying. Small business engagement is really important to us too. Again, I mentioned that we are an audience. I mean, we are a small business. So we're going to be going to downtown San Fernando, door to door, and asking, the Mall Association for stakeholder meetings as well, the Chamber of Commerce. We think they're an excellent, obviously, audience for what should happen in parking lot 3. And we also do something called property owner outreach, because it's different than tenants. So sometimes you have large property owners that aren't not from the city and have different interests than the tenants who are there. So we actually reached both of them separately. And then we have 2 specific audiences we'd like to engage here, the local realtors and the local mortgage brokers, because we think they can give us a lot of feedback about what it's like to buy a home in San Fernando right now. As you all know, we're considering doing for sale housing for working families. And so we want to know what that experience is like for realtors and mortgage brokers. Okay, and the last thing will be door-to-door outreach. And this is saved till the very end for May to June. And this is very hopeful that we're going to be able to do this. Currently, door-to-door outreach is not allowed by LA County. So when we're allowed to do this, this is a protocol that was set in place until about October. So it's basically wearing shields and staying away from the actual resident 6 feet away. But assuming we are able to do this, I committed to you, to the City Council, that we would walk the community twice. And I want to do that. I'm going to do that as soon as it's safe. So, and again, our employees are the ones who do this, so we can hear directly what residents are saying. And all of us speak English and Spanish. This is just a little bit about me and the company, who we are. There's more information on our website. And this is so that the city can leave this up on your actual website, just in case the public wants to download this and get more information. We want them to get to see all the information. We're doing this as a nonprofit. We're totally transparent. There's nothing to hide. We will share all the data with you and whoever is filling it out. I think that's important for you to know exactly what's going on. And with that, I will stop sharing and turn it back over to the mayor so we can go through any details of the plan that you'd like.
Okay, Councilmember Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the Azure team and the Cosmot team for this. We are absolutely 100% focused and eager to put in place a strong community outreach program. It's very important to us, it's only getting more important by the day as land use in our city becomes so important. And so I just want to comment briefly on some things that I really liked. I think including stakeholders specifically is, a very smart approach. I think our local tribe, obviously, the neighborhood watch group, the chamber that you mentioned, the mall association you mentioned, and also importantly, residents groups. And, there are even Facebook groups of San Fernando residents and so forth. So I think all those things are definitely interesting to explore because there's just so many interests at stake. And so maybe I'll just kind of begin for this question for Ms. Delgado. I have a question as to how you kind of negotiate or rationalize outreach efforts when you have opposing views. So, I mean, thousands of comments and so many meetings, I'm sure you're going to have groups of folks saying one thing, groups of folks saying another thing, and groups of folks saying a third. And then city council over here probably, popping off with nonsense ourselves as well. So I'm wondering, a little bit as to your process on how you kind of not only collect the input, but how are you using it to inform the project?
That's an excellent question, and not a very easy one to do, except for that the reason we get to 1,000 is so we can find things that are statistically significant. And so the reason I use Typeform is because it translates all the data into Google Analytics.
Sure.
And so I can see the trends, and you can see the trends. Now, if 99% of the community wants a Nordstrom, we're going to have an issue because the parameter is it has to be financially feasible, right? So, but barring anything that is just so askew, then usually this really does work to find the major trends. What you'll probably notice is that the trends are different for age groups. So millennials will want something different than what seniors want. And so our job, because this is a public-private partnership, is to decide what can we do to bring together a little bit of everything. What a lot of times people agree with is usable open space, retail.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we'll find is that there's no affordable housing for workforce residents. But if all of those assumptions are wrong, then it is our job to create a site plan that actually meets the community intent. We find, though, that the best feedback a lot of times is on those stakeholder meetings. And that's why we do them, because sometimes, the Rotary will decipher all the information that we're hearing from residents in a way where, we're talking in a smaller setting.
Right.
We can get to the nitty gritty. If you don't mind, Councilmember, I can show the list now just so you can have a reference of the stakeholder for all of the council.
Sure, and you can leave it up while we chat. It's mostly, my question is trying to get to the core of when you have, opposing views, not like when it's 99% wants a Nordstrom, but when 52% want, more retail and 48% want more housing, right? I mean, when the rubber meets the road here, like, how do you really kind of use it to inform the plan?
Yeah, I mean, and we are striking a balance with a mixed use project. So
Right.
I really think that that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that some people want housing and some people want retail. And so we may find that it's a very small housing component and a larger retail, or the opposite. The point being that the nice thing about our firm being a nonprofit and executing this is that we're not driven by a certain bottom line. We don't have to produce anything specific. We actually cannot take a profit based on the way that the grants are allocated. And you have Ken, who essentially is monitoring that we're all following a process that doesn't produce something that isn't aligned with the public-private partnership. So, but I think the best response is whatever the community says that's financially feasible and doable on a project, we will actually try to do. So, and this is just,
I mean, it's a tough question, so
yeah,
I completely understand that. And you know, in the interest of time, I'll move on to Ken, if you don't mind. Ken, for a project like this, what are the expectations that we can have for other opportunity sites that, you know, you've obviously identified in your work with San Fernando? If you can kind of explain to, you know, our residents how a project like this will impact future projects, and maybe even touch a little bit on the, you know, the current mall makeup and downtown makeup and how that might be impacted as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do think that I sometimes use the word catalyst. I mean, we're trying to find something that can help catalyze, you know, the economic development success or the advancement of your downtown, which already is a robust environment with many success stories. But the point here is, I think, number one, the market is helping to tell us where the demands are coming from. So the other part of the component of the community outreach and dialogue is education. We're getting educated by the market. You know, pre-COVID, we might have had a notion for something, and it's not just because of COVID that the market's sort of evolved. But post-COVID, there's definitely some permanent trends and permanent impacts. Housing is clearly in great demand and a significant lack of supply. Home ownership, of course, is a microcosm of that. And so I think one part of bringing to downtown that dynamic, which I think is eyes on the street, if you will, more people that can live in an environment that's urban, obviously with home ownership and pride of ownership. But I think bringing some people downtown that can be there on a 24-hour basis, I'll just use that term, meaning they live there. They don't just work there and then they leave. They don't just come to shop there, but they're basically there. They own that environment on a 24-hour basis. That can be actually very catalytic, and it can be almost an economic development driver. So if the question is, hey, can people help retail? The answer is yes. Can people living in downtown help retail in downtown? The answer is yes. Can people help the environment, blending and integrating where people and commercial coexist? I think the answer is yes. So I think it can be catalytic to maybe other projects, other mixed use or blended use projects that can kind of follow suit. And again, also people get used to the idea of living in downtown, and if the demand is if the project is oversubscribed by demand, then that's going to give us more information about the market and what your other opportunity sites can be imagined.
Okay. And you know, I did begin reaching out almost immediately once this came across our desk to, you know, local realtors, real estate agents, Ashkenazi developments, other property owners, just to hear, you know, from experts and professionals in that industry, right? You know, what do you think about this project? And what I did hear was that that we might have handicapped ourselves a bit, kneecapped ourselves a bit by only doing lot 3 by itself, rather than maybe offering up multiple lots, you know, and trying to go for some kind of, you know, larger scale project. Could you maybe chime in a little bit on that and see, or maybe just kind of give us your opinion on that dynamic of, you know, kind of having just one lot versus kind of exploring multiple lots at the same time, and whether we should be, I mean, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Obviously, we're still so early in this project, but as a young person, I'm always thinking about the future, right? How do we prepare ourselves for those, you know, projects that you say may be catalyzed, you know, by having maybe concurrent processes with the next, you know, project, or I don't know, maybe kind of add some color on that question and that idea.
Yeah, I think I can use a couple of examples. One is has a current success story, and one could be a future success story. The one that I'm thinking of is in Santa Clarita, in Old Town Newhall, in an area where there's a main street. And one thing that had to happen was something needed to take the first step. A project needed to be sort of the catalyst project. And it's kind of like, and I'm sorry to use a baseball analogy because I'm a baseball guy, but you can't score a run unless you swing and hit the ball. You can't get on base unless you swing and hit the ball. You can't score a run unless you get a single, double, triple. You got to start with your first hit, and you got to take a swing. So I think what we tried to do is identify a site that was the most catalytic that we could, I don't want to use the term test, but we went to the market with that site. And I think this could be an example that we learn from. Now, if we were talking about all of your parking lots, I truly think this process would be even more complicated than it already is. So I think, and I don't even think this process is that simple. I think this site in a public-private format with the concepts that are put on the table and with all of this input, I think it's important to do, again, sort of one base at a time, one opportunity site at a time. And then we can find out what the market dynamics teach us, as opposed to necessarily trying to do it all at once. That's sort of just, you know, that's an opinion, and that's kind of a little bit of some professional experience. The other example I was going to use besides Newhall and Santa Clarita, which, by the way, that's becoming a success story. That site that I mentioned, it catalyzed the avenue, if you will, along with other investments, public investments. So it's on its way. It's a success story. I'll use one other one, which may seem a little odd, but that's State Street, Santa Barbara. State Street, Santa Barbara has got 10 blocks of retail. That was a very amazing success story for so many years because it was iconic and it was a destination. We did a study for the city of Santa Barbara, and we were the ones that had to kind of do the market evaluation to say 10 blocks of retail can't be backfilled because of the vacancies and the consumer habits and the technologies of today. So where that could be a future success story is something has to catalyze State Street to include a blend of uses, in our opinion. We need, residential needs to come to that block, that corridor. And it's a very tough concept for people to grasp, and a very tough zoning strategy to implement, a tough market strategy to implement, but it's got to start somewhere. And I think that one is another one that's going to take one step at a time in order for it to ultimately become more of a more blended and integrated entire corridor. And so I think that's another example of where one site, I think, will be the catalyst for hopefully ultimately what becomes, you know, a success story, because they need it. They're suffering from a lot of vacancies and a lot of change.
And in this spirit of, you know, community outreach and continuing to learn how to do our jobs better, I would like to maybe ask this question to staff and our planning department. Do we need to have our own city-sponsored outreach? Do we need to have our own town meetings as well? I mean, are we kind of just not necessarily relying on Azure here, but obviously they have a pretty robust plan in place. But maybe if you can opine on, you know, maybe extra steps we need to take, or are we kind of in a wait and see approach first, you know, and just maybe kind of give your perspective as well.
You know, I think, again, this is probably a project that can benefit from too much, you know, community outreach, meaning, you know, we can always do more, right? So, you know, if council wants to run, obviously we would probably want to differentiate it a little bit from what Vanessa doing. So we want to ask different questions, and I do believe part of that.
Excuse me, Mr. City Manager.
We're at 15.
We are at we're about 14 minutes.
Thank you. But just
Okay.
I think just to kind of a final comment before we go to the next council member, I think is, part of that resiliency and visioning and resiliency ad hoc. I think some of that will be discussed. And I got to reach out, and probably tomorrow I'll get the ad hoc committee schedule so we can schedule the first meeting of that. But about talking about a process for quote unquote visioning, I guess, in the downtown area. So part of that process, that I think we'll talk about a process that might be a city run process that would almost run a little parallel, but we want to differentiate it from.
Yeah, maybe we can solicit different responses because, we're a different entity than the private, than the Azure and so forth. But okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Tim, did you want to say something?
Sure. Just to respond to Councilmember Pacheco's great question.
Please.
I'm always a big proponent of the freemium model, and we have a development partner here that is, going to be embarking on a community outreach effort. Absolutely, I think this is a great opportunity to ask to incorporate some types of, survey work or community outreach work that we can leverage. So asking the questions that we want answers to as a city council, as a community, why not? They're footing the bill for it. And if there's anything that is additional that we want to follow up on and add, then we can supplement in the future as well.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rodriguez, you have 15 minutes. It's 7:46.
I do not plan to take that full 15 minutes. Thank you, Mayor. I have a few quick questions. First, thank you for such a robust plan and ensuring that it will be bilingual. Just a technical question. Do you have a process for ensuring someone doesn't do like multiple entries to your survey since you'll have so many different avenues?
Yeah, so we definitely have a way to do that on Typeform. The problem we're going to have is technically somebody could use their phone and their computer and still have the same address. Now, we do require an email or phone number to be eligible to let us know about the drawing. So we're hoping that that will reduce the duplication. It'll say on there, you don't need, you cannot, we're not going to take your name twice. So there is a way though to filter out duplicate responses on the service. So let's see, that's why I'm using Typeform and not, another service, because they can actually track that.
Got it. And then I have a question about your digital plan. How will you be targeting ads based on age group and like changing messaging, or what's the plan there? Because I think kind of to the point that was made, right? Like the interests of our older population might be different from our younger one, especially when it comes to housing. So I'm just wondering how the outreach will be different for each.
Yeah, the only thing we had planned right now is, oh, I'm so glad Richard's cat made an audience. I've seen it on your meetings this whole time, and there it is. So Facebook would be for the older audience. No offense to all of us who use Facebook, but and Spanish, right? So because I think that from your data, it shows that your older population can speak Spanish more than English. So, and then millennials will be Instagram and trying to get them through that. That's actually where some of your restaurants, like some of your coolest concepts right now, have the best followers on Instagram. I don't know if you all have tracked this, but so I've been trying to see kind of where people lie, and I think that's where we're going to be able to pay for the different age groups. And again, this can be shared as part of the drawing, essentially. So if people have interests, we can text it to everybody as well through the phone banking, but I think social media will get some buzz.
Thank you. Is there a plan to show how many people you're reaching and maybe how, like throughout the process, or do you launch March 1st and you come back with how many people you reach? Like, will there be a dashboard on the page?
Yeah, so Tim and I will have access to the dashboard. So because it's the actual data, really we can't open up the dashboard to everybody, but he can print out for you, however, we could do like a monthly report maybe as to the Google Analytics and what it's showing, who's sharing it, who's opening it, who opens it and doesn't actually fill it out, who fills it out and shares it. You can see that. But by demographic, not individuals.
Okay. I think like Tim, that would be really helpful. Because obviously you have a council that can help with the outreach. And I think the more we know, the more helpful we can be as you go throughout the process. Also to your comment, Tim, about just kind of leveraging this moment to answer some questions we have as a city. I know I'm really excited about this opportunity for home ownership for our residents, but I'm wondering about like readiness. And I know you're going to speak to realtors, but I think it would be really helpful, whether it's through this process or the city's own, to find out, like everyone might be super interested in having home ownership opportunities, but they might not have the credit score or the savings or really like the way to actually own the home. So I think it would be helpful, because if we end up, putting forth that as the plan, we obviously want to support our residents in pursuing those opportunities.
We can certainly add those types of questions, and then the city can add as many questions as you want that are, doesn't make it like a 15-minute survey, but yeah.
Well, and I think there's got to be like a sappy way of asking these questions too, because my next one was actually, I want to make sure that we address any fears of displacement, especially by the businesses that are in the mall right now. Right? Like sometimes that's what new development translates to. It's like, oh, well, now I'm going to get kicked out, or, it's going to be too expensive for me. So obviously in the appropriate language, measuring that so that we can also talk as a council about what are those, ways we're going to not only mitigate those fears, but actually ensure people are not displaced from any new development.
Right.
And just my last comment, to what Councilman Pacheco mentioned about our own outreach strategy. I know that the new ad hoc is going to do a lot of work about what's going to be happening in our downtown area. And perhaps there's an opportunity, Nick, where we can discuss kind of what could better public information look like for the city, because we have so many things happening at once. We, Lane Park, lot 3, Tesla just happened, and things will continue to happen. And it's going to be a really great year and few years where we're going to be doing some awesome change, even, safe and active streets, where I think, us getting more support so that we relay to the public what we're doing and get appropriate feedback would be really helpful. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Martinez.
Okay, thank you for the presentation on some of the things that we're doing on the outreach. Can you just briefly describe the project that we're talking about?
Yeah, so when we do community outreach, we actually give people the platform to give us any opinion. So there's no specified, this is a project, it's a blank slate. And it's truly how I see it. If the community says that they want office here, and that's not what we originally intended, that's okay.
So are you already looking for funding for this project?
Well, technically what we decided as a team is to pause until after the outreach is had, so that we could really look at, what the community wanted. There were some grants that we outlined in the beginning, but because they are land use specific, we're pausing that until the completion of the outreach, which is in June.
So, so what's the project scope? Because I thought you said that there was a pro forma that was completed.
Yeah, there was. It was for sale housing with a blend of some commercial. That was the original concept. That's kind of how we entered the E&A, and that's the initial evaluations that we've done.
Okay, so the for sale housing, how many for sale housing units are in that pro forma?
I think our last version had 50. But again, the way, unfortunately, the way an RFP process works is there has to be a concept plan that you submit. But to me, I think that's always backwards. I think that if a developer goes in with anything, it's predetermining an outcome. So instead, especially as a nonprofit, I can go to a community with a blank slate. It is really that transparent. And that's really how I feel about it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And so, okay, so the performer right now had 50 housing units. And are those 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, or do we know the composition of like what was in there?
I mean, I can tell you what was in the concept, but again, it's so preliminary that it's nothing that we should all be relying on. So the smallest units are 2 bedrooms. Most of them are 3 bedrooms.
Okay. Okay, and then right now we have, and then how many parking spots?
118.
118. And then currently on that, how many parking spots do we have in that lot?
That's for the housing. So that's not inclusive of rebuilding the public parking.
Okay, so how many spots do we have to rebuild?
I believe it's 120. That's my memory there. So something like that. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah, like 114 or something.
Yeah, 114. Yeah.
114?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it'll be 114 that have to be replaced, and then 118 for the housing.
Yep. Yes.
And then when we looked at the pro forma, is it stacked parking or above ground parking, or is there underground parking?
So there was 1 level at grade, and then that was for the replacement of the parking, and then for the retail component. And then the residents actually drive into their garage. So they have a 2-car garage on the 2nd level, so they could walk up to so it could feel like a home. And then there's guest parking. But again, the purpose of what we're going over is the community outreach, because we do not have a set plan that we're moving forward with at this time.
Okay. So then so what do you mean then that we went to market on the site, and then also that this has been identified as a catalytic project if we don't yet have a project developed?
Well, the zoning, what we identified for the marketplace to kind of solicit developer interest is that the zoning, has a mixed use designation. There's a residential, there's residential uses allowed, commercial uses allowed. And then from the feedback, actually from the community meetings, we actually took their feedback to indicate at a high level and a summary basis in the RFQ what might be desired by the community, which included entertainment, the possibility of residential, commercial, retail, et cetera. So that's how we went to market. It would be difficult to not have some of those concept land uses or desires parking, because we did say we need to replace existing public parking, of course. So that was part of the parameters for the RFQ.
And just a quick correction there. It was an RFQ, so it's not. I think what you're looking for is how could we have prepared an RFP without land uses? So it was an RFQ, and when we had our initial analysis for the ENA, I think it was in July, the city council asked for the community outreach before it really moved forward to what is considered an entitlement phase, where you do your analysis at that point with land uses. So we're like 1 step behind that.
Okay, and then okay, so we don't know yet, because I'm interested in like doing the studies, and it's probably less Vanessa on you and probably more Ken, is understanding like what's the right mix, right, in the downtown of these different uses in order to really make it that catalytic project. And it seems like right now, like I don't think we've done the studies yet to give direction to Vanessa and the team on like what the right mix is, correct? Have we done that analysis?
We've done some supply and demand analyses that are a high level early on that said that really residential is in great demand and retail was kind of in a little bit of a flux. If you go back to 2018, 2019, we found that your downtown environment was quite robust. There was strong demand. There was, patronage into your downtown, particularly for certain uses. So there was, a lot of activity that we found in downtown. If we're fast forwarding a bit, the market's changed to a degree, but large scale retail, we know, has been on the decline. That's really not what's in demand. Entertainment uses in the theater business is clearly on some version of a decline. So that's not really what works. But smaller scale, experiential, entertaining type retail, we found the market has some demand for that. And then we clearly found that the market has demand for sale housing.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't know exactly, again, what the mix is, right? So I think that's important, right, for the city to figure out. And Vanessa, thank you, because I think it's wonderful that you're open to saying, okay, I may have submitted 50 apartment, or I'm sorry, 50 townhomes, right? Because they're townhomes, they're for sale. So 50, and this is the composition. I really appreciate that you are willing to basically go out to the community and work with us with a clean slate to see what the residents want, and like what we hear the merchants and the property owners say that they feel in order to be able to help revitalize the city. I know that just from talking, I think all the council members could agree, from just talking, people want entertainment, and they want that experience. I know I do. I think we all do. Want that experience of being able to go to the downtown, and sometimes it's not even to shop initially. You just kind of want to go walk, because it's a beautiful place, and you want to hang out, and you want to be able to sit at a bench or in an open space, and then all of a sudden you find yourself buying stuff, and later on you realize you took out your credit card or a couple dollars more than you thought you were, and then yes, more and more developments are necessitating or asking for like housing so that people could be in the downtown. So I support a process of really doing strong visioning and master planning as a whole, and getting community involved and asking the community, what is it that we want, right? And go through a master planning of the downtown, and then be able to truly make this that catalytic project that will help us accomplish that vision and that desire that residents and the business community have for the city of San Fernando. And I think we could really get this right. We have, it's such a critical lot, the Jack in the Box lot, if people don't know what that lot number is, right behind JCPenney's. It's such a critical lot and location that it could just really connect beautifully to bring the downtown together, and then possibly spark development going further up on San Fernando Road, right? If we do it right. So I again want to say that I appreciate the sincere effort that I hear from you, saying we're going to go out there with a blank slate, and we're going to get opinions from residents, with all the different technologies that you're saying that you're going to use. I think that's great. Engaging and sitting one-on-ones, in-person meeting, if people want to have in-person safe, COVID safe meetings with smaller stakeholders like the merchants and the chamber and property owners and all the groups that you listed, right? Door to door I saw, so I think, eventually, when it's safe, going out, you're going to hear people have very strong feelings about this. And so, my recommendation is like, people want to be listened to, definitely. Once you push a project, especially on projects that have had very strong opposition in the past in the city, which is multifamily housing in the downtown, it's really important to get very sincere, open, like communication going with the community. And so that process, I think, is great. And I really appreciate that you are listening to the community and being open and going out so that we truly can have that transformative project. I mean, I know I've said it before. I think that what the Pacific Palisades did with the Palisades Village, very different community. Clearly, we're not the Pacific Palisades, we are a lower income community, but we have that beautiful little downtown, and it's more definitely a main street. So being able to build a main street where there is retail, there's outdoor spaces, Now, there's, some housing in certain projects. There's a very small theater for people that have not been out there. It's a beautiful little theater. I think 4 or 6 screens, that's it. So it becomes more of a destination, not necessarily getting, 14, 18 screens. You're just getting something that attracts people. Farmers markets. I mean, you literally could just go there to say, I'm going to go there because I'm going to go sit on that bench underneath this tree, and next to this beautiful historic lamppost that just relaxes me. And I think we could get that in San Fernando. I know we can. The parking lot is right there next to the Lopez Adobe, St. Ferdinand's. That's like the historic core of the city. And so we could really build off our historic core and do something really special and beautiful, with local engagement. So thank you for the presentation. I would just, I'll definitely be giving comments, making sure that the list is accurate. There might be some groups that may no longer exist that are on that list. People come and go, especially during COVID. But be able to add in additional people that I think you should be meeting with. Thank you for going out. So basically, the survey, it would be good to just maybe send us the survey before it goes out. So it would just be good on that survey if it's indeed the case that we're not going to have automatically this project that's in the performa that you're looking for funding for. If that's indeed the case, which you're telling me it is, and we're starting from a blank slate, then let people know we're starting from a blank slate. It's 100% city-owned lot. This is we want to hear from you and what you have to say. And I think it's going to be really exciting. I agree with what Councilmember Rodriguez said is that, we've got a lot going on. The potential to have this an amazing, just turn to the city exist. And I think that this will absolutely be that project, or can be that project that gets us the little city that we are to be that special place that we all love it to be. So I appreciate that. Other questions on the details of outreach, I'll follow up. We can talk about it to give you more connections on who you should talk to. But overall, it's really that master planning, that visioning for the downtown that I really want to go for, and not a box like 50 units. Okay.
Excuse me.
And I know I'm at time now. Yeah.
Just one wrap-up comment. Thank you for those comments. But I do think that the market data, especially given COVID, I think that's a good piece that perhaps Ken and Tim, we could take to our little working group, that we should refresh the market data when the results of this is out, so that the council can make an informed decision about the land uses and where they stand. I think that's a valuable piece that we can add to our scope.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate your presentation, Vanessa, and I'm pleased that you're keeping an open mind in the project, whether we're going to have more housing or less, or more commercial, that you're open to providing what our residents have been saying. They want the retail, they want entertainment and restaurants. I might add maybe a possibility of a child care center. It might be something. And I'm pleased that you're included. I really liked your goals and objectives, that you're including the open space, parking, and yeah, pretty much that. And considering decreasing the number of housing units. The outreach, of course, it's very important. That's why we're here, to discuss your outreach. So I think, it's super important that it's completed thoroughly, and, working with Nick and staff on how to go about it is good. I saw your list. I might add some more to the list as well. I'll send them on to Nick. Maybe, in terms of all the projects we have going, as Council Member Rodriguez mentioned, maybe I don't know. It was one of the things I was concerned with as well, is that we have so many projects going on in the city that we want to make sure that they're all separated, just as you've indicated, you're something that you're working on. But we need to figure out how we're going to address it, address them all so that the residents don't get confused. Because we do need their input. We need them on all of the projects we have going, and definitely on yours as well. Now let me see. I support your outreach efforts. I like what you've proposed so far.
Thank
That's
you.
all. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, I'm very excited that we're finally launching this program. It's been a long, long time since we've had many, many conversations. I do like the openness of nothing's defined yet. You did say from the beginning you wanted community input, and here we are. I'm very supportive of market rate housing. I like ownership. That's very important to me. I think some of these people that have been renting for years, it's unfortunate that they don't own the place that they are renting for the amount they pay, actually. You talked about reaching out to real estate agents, and I have a recommendation of an outstanding real estate agent, and I think you know him. He's our former mayor, Joe Fajardo. He's a wealth of information, so please reach out to him. And with that, I have no other questions. Do any of our council members have additional questions? I see none, so Nick, would you go over the direction as you perceive it?
Yeah, no, it sounds like, I think Vanessa and Ken and Tim were all taking diligent notes. We'll definitely refine that list of who, the community stakeholders. We'll definitely review the list of questions that will get sent out. And I think also we'll get the visioning and resiliency ad hoc. We'll get a meeting together and maybe work with them and even review some of those questions as well as kind of the other efforts that we've gone through and what that ad hoc wants to review, but also maybe kind of look at some of these questions and see, if we can incorporate some of this outreach to meet some of the goals of that economic development visioning. So I think there was all really great feedback. And again, we'll continue that discussion with council members to make sure they have an opportunity to review, survey questions and other items before they go out and have a very extremely robust outreach effort starting in March.
Well, thank you very much. And now that you have your direction, we will move on to item, let's see, 7, correct?
That is correct. And I will send this over to Public Works Director Matt Baumgartner to introduce the item. And then we have a few representatives from NG, our consultant, to go through a presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Tonight I'm going to introduce to you Tony Lamino from NG Services and his team, who are going to provide an update on the energy efficiency audit that he and his team conducted for the city, looking at a variety of upgrade opportunities for energy savings at facilities across the city. Tony will also be discussing a couple of items for council direction, the first being participation in the self-generation incentive program, which provides rebates for battery energy storage systems for use at our police facility and CNG station, as well as the option of installing Wi-Fi hardware on certain city-owned streetlights. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Tony for his brief presentation. I think he's got about 8 slides, and then open it up for questions and discussion. Tony, I think you have the ability to share screen. Tony, can you hear us?
Tony, you're on mute if you are talking.
Did we lose Tony?
I'm checking with him right now.
He's on.
I know they were having some issues earlier today. We had a sort of a pre-meeting and they were having some issues connecting to Zoom. I hope that's not still the case.
He indicated that he was in the waiting room, but it looks like he is on now. So
I see him there. He just has to do his video and his unmute himself.
Mayor, maybe we can take a 5-minute bathroom break.
Let's do that.
And then, so everyone put yourself on mute and we'll get it sorted out.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Okay, so so we'll return at 8:20.
I'm here now.
You can go to the bathroom now, Tony.
Well, but that's where I was. So no, it's funny. My video was in audio. Everything was about like a 10-second delay. So that was interesting.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to go ahead and mute yourself. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Well, I think I see Tony now. Hi,
I'm here.
Tony.
I'm here.
Good
Sorry
to
about
meet
that.
you. Good to meet you. Julia, thank you so much for the keeping time for the last round. I appreciate it. Last minute request.
Very welcome, Mayor Ballin.
Thank you. Good teamwork on our part.
I think what happened was I had the Zoom streaming going, and then when I was invited in, there was a bit of an overlap. So
I'll accept that. That sounds like a good one. Yeah.
Like when you used to, I think I said this before, but it's like when you used to dial into K-Rock. You know, we're on delay. If you're watching it on YouTube, we're on about a 10-second delay. So, you know, real time is a little quicker than that.
Yep.
I believe, Mayor, we have a quorum back at our seats. In fact, I see Celeste is back as well. So, and it's 8:20. So when at your pleasure, we can start again.
Okay, so we'll go back to Matt. Matt, would you like to do the formal introductions now that we have Tony on board?
As I was saying, Tony and his team conducted the update for the city for the energy audit, and I'm going to turn it over to him so that he can present about 8 slides and walk us through a couple of items for council's consideration and discussion regarding the self-generation incentive program, as well as the possibility of installing some Wi-Fi hardware at our city-owned streetlights. So Tony, if you have your, are you able to share screen?
I'm going to try. And then I also, while I'm doing this, I have my colleague on the line, Jeff Woldheis. So Jeff is on the line as well.
Good evening, everybody.
And Tony, we can see your presentation, so you're good to go.
Great. Oh, I was just going to check. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to provide you with this update. As Matt had suggested, oh no, let me see if I can, there we go. What we wanted to do is just bring you up to date, give you a status check on a program that we started in the late summer, fall of 2019, investigating the city for opportunities for improvements, energy efficiency through a paid-from savings program. Talk a little bit about the self-generation incentive program. That's an incentive program to help fund the projects that we've identified. And then, as Matt was mentioning, get your feedback, present some information, get your feedback on citywide Wi-Fi scenarios and opportunities. It was the end of 2018 that the city started their search for a partner for energy efficiency studies and opportunities. And then that led to us doing a kickoff with staff, NG Services, and the staff at the city of San Fernando, looking for doing an analysis of all of the city facilities. And that included benchmarking all of the energy consumption, going through every building, every facility, looking at all of the parks, going to the well sites, and looking at all of the lighting and all of the motors and all of the air conditioning and all of the different components that utilize energy, and trying to identify opportunities where we could improve the facility condition and the city's assets and save energy at the same time. So here is a pretty high level snapshot of some of the opportunities that we found. And the first group of measures that we call them, those are opportunities for improvement, are energy efficiency focused and improvement focused of of the systems. Things like LED lighting and controls throughout the city, interior, exterior at the parks, improve the maintenance aspect of them, as well as the lighting and the efficiency. Looking at irrigation controls, so our focus also included the utilization of water throughout the city, and then of course looking at some of your older air conditioning systems. You've got some new ones that have been replaced through emergency upgrades, but you do have several of them that have lived beyond their useful life, if you will, and are great opportunities for upgrading through energy efficiency program. Again, we also looked at the well systems and opportunities to improve efficiency and the reliability of those systems. And then after we did that, we then took a step back and looked at the opportunities for generating on-site clean renewable energy and other opportunities to include battery energy storage systems, which will store the energy generated by the solar photovoltaic systems or coming off the grid, SCE grid, and then utilizing that energy in very strategic ways from the battery, either to peak or reduce the peak demand at some facilities, or provide power at night when the sun isn't shining and you're not generating from the solar PV. We always like to look at the possibility of adding then EV chargers, stations to these systems to really round it out. And another element is power resiliency. The city has had some experiences with the SCE's public safety power shutoffs, where on high wind days, to prevent the possibility and eliminate the possibility of the utility company starting wildfires, they've come up with this rate PSPS, which allows them to preemptively shut the power off. So that creates an opportunity for us to use renewable energy sources and batteries to provide backup power. So we went through the scope. We identified over 80 individual measures, a value of well over $11 million. And the next step really was to then say, okay, how could we take this program and find the appropriate funding? How can we create a paid from savings program? So the next slide is part of that effort, which is to identify those funding sources. Now, several years ago, there was a program that's been initiated called the Self-Generation Incentive Program. And its funding, it really is to support the advancement of various technologies. And currently, it's focused on battery energy storage. Again, typically, you're capturing electricity that's generated either by your solar PV system or from the grid. You're storing that energy and then deploying the battery energy at very strategic times. The utility benefit is you're taking a lot of stress off the grid at those high peak, very hot days. So they're incentivizing these things, these systems. We submitted 5 applications on behalf of the city, 5 locations. 3 of them were conditionally approved. What that means is that there was a lottery system. The program was oversubscribed for the funding that was available. 3 of them were selected through a lottery system, and of those 5 applications. And then upon further review, what we, working with staff, are proposing to do is proceed with 2 of those locations. That's at the police department and then the CNG station, or the operations station. The total potential incentive for those 2 locations, as you can see, is a little more than $580,000. Those fees will go directly to offset the cost of these battery energy storage systems and the installation. Now, what they've done is under this program is they require that you hold your incentive and hold this opportunity in your reservation by showing commitment. And that commitment is in the term of funds, and it's 5% of the reserved amount, it's approximately $30,000. So what we'll ask the council to do is make a decision. You can either cancel these applications and there will be no fee or penalty, or we can pay the application fee to reserve those incentives, that incentive, the $583,000, almost $584,000. So we can talk about that again. The other topic that we wanted to cover is to get some feedback from the council on the public Wi-Fi. This was included in Measure SF that was approved by the voters. And there's a couple of options to consider. One is a citywide network, if you will, of public Wi-Fi coverage. And it would be a rather extensive network. You can use for transmitting sites, if you will, the city's own streetlights for some of the coverage. And there will be some areas that won't have coverage utilizing the city's assets as you have them now. Another opportunity, and I'll show you a map in a second, another opportunity is to start smaller, if you will, and pick a couple of parks like Las Palmas and Recreation Park, where there are community centers, you have rooms, you have facilities there to create some safe zone for some community use. And you think of the students going to LA Unified School District, online, needing to find a secure place to go, log in, get their homework, upload their assignments, those kind of things. That could be a nice area. And then also to identify the downtown area and provide some Wi-Fi spots, if you will, down there. Back to the citywide, I'm going to share a couple of slides with you. This image is it's an aerial image of the city of San Fernando, and all the little green markers, LS2, designate the over 400 streetlights that are owned and operated by the city. So with that ownership, you get to do what you want with them, in that they could be potential nodes, if you will, for having a Wi-Fi signal and a Wi-Fi connection, which is great. You're certainly covering the opportunity in the business section in the downtown areas. Okay, so one of the things that is on the downside, though, is when you get to some of the reaches in the, let's say, the northeast corner of the city, there aren't streetlights that the city owns. And there are areas, dense residential areas, that you would have to find an alternative way to mount these routers. And that cost could be, and the system of doing that could get rather complicated and rather expensive. So we have good areas where all of the city-owned streetlights are, and then we have some areas where there's no coverage at all. Another way that we talked about, this is the Las Palmas Park, just to give you a sense of the range. If we were to install a system, a Wi-Fi router within the park, within the facility itself, it has a diameter, it has a range of about 300 feet in diameter, 150 feet in radius. That's sort of the coverage that you could expect when you're mounting something within a building and the signal traveling through the walls of the facility. But you get a sense of, well, this is what coverage could be if it was mounted and installed within the park. If it is mounted on a pole, whether it's the downtown section or some of those other areas, the range increases, which is great, to about 500 feet in diameter. So a little bit more than this. So we have a couple of options here. And again, what we really wanted to do is just start to get some of your feedback on what your preference might be. And again, thinking that even an area like this, ultimately, you might want to have included, and could be a good place to start. So with that, let me also just conclude by laying out a couple of the very high level next steps. When we're what the staff and NG, what we're working together on is identifying funding sources for the projects that we've identified. Just as we've done significant due diligence and analysis for identifying those opportunities, we have to put that same level of effort into finding the funding. And when we identify those funding sources, we will return to the city, hold potentially some workshops with the Green Ad Hoc Committee, and present some of the options and the different scenarios. Ultimately, making a presentation to the council for final approval of some options of scope and funding. And with that, I've concluded the presentation. So back to you, Matt.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about the Wi-Fi, and especially because that was part of our Measure SF.
Yes.
I will go first to Council Member Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. If you don't mind, I'll just start off with requesting you to flip back a couple slides to the columns with the X's on all the, yeah, there we go. So for starters, you know, I think this is very exciting progress. I want to give another shout out to a former colleague, Mayor Fajardo, because this was something that was really near and dear to him, getting this energy audit, because, you know, these issues are going to affect us for, you know, years and years to come. And so I really do think this is an opportunity for San Fernando to be a leader. Not that many neighboring cities, really spotty areas in Los Angeles even, have really good public Wi-Fi access. And, you know, I'm a big believer in leading by example. And if we are serious about access to education for our children, all the studies show that the more internet access that individuals have, the better they do in test scores, the more, the higher salaries they end up making in their careers. You know, it's just all really good stuff. And so I do believe that public Wi-Fi around certain nodes makes a lot of sense. For instance, where we have, you know, the day camps, or, you know, a rec park. I think that would be an amazing thing to be able to offer our day campers, right? I think the other parks, Las Palmas, Pioneer, etc., all makes, you know, total sense. Near our library, right? Near our city hall and so forth. And I think, yeah, we'll have to get creative on how we extend access to the farther reaches of our city, you know. But we don't have to just plan for tomorrow or for next week, right? And, you know, as a member of the Green City Ad Hoc, I believe that it's really on, well, not only just on the ad hoc, but really on city council generally, to put in place a plan, you know, for the years to come. We don't have to try to get everything done right now. And secondly, I think, you know, these water issues are extremely important. You know, water is life. Hashtag water is life. You know, I'm a big believer in that. And I really do think, you know, people that know me know this is an issue of mine, that the chickens are coming home to roost about water, especially in California, especially in Southern California. And so we need to prepare ourselves, prepare our residents, prepare our businesses by, you know, being a leader, by installing, you know, well systems that are sensible, and, you know, these thermostats that will help us save energy, right? And so I have a couple questions really just revolving around, you know, kind of next steps. But the first one I kind of want to start with in terms of, maybe this is a question for staff. If we do offer public, you know, Wi-Fi, and it's becoming prohibitively expensive for us, is there some sort of like utility charge we could have, like that's, very minimal, like maybe 99 cents thrown on your water bill, just so that we would have, Wi-Fi all across the city. Is that something that, is feasible for cities? Is it considered a new tax, or I don't know, but maybe that's just an aspect of our financing that I don't know if it's being really considered at this point yet, or how we would go ahead and consider like all the maintenance and all the upkeep for, once this internet is installed. So that's kind of an open question to whoever might want to chime in.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember. So I think, tonight, obviously.
Excuse me, Nick.
Yeah.
Do you mind taking down the PowerPoint so we could see everyone?
Yeah, you can take it down now. That's a great idea.
I do a stop share.
Yes, please.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think what we wanted to get tonight is just to make sure that we're on the right track with at least exploring the Wi-Fi, because there are, like you mentioned, Councilmember, a number of very complicated questions, particularly like as it, relates to carriers and then, competing with other utilities and what,
right,
to what extent we, would we become a utility company and if we're charging for Wi-Fi and providing it to everyone. So, we definitely have a number of questions that we do need to explore. We just wanted to make sure that we were on the right track, at least starting that exploration.
Okay, understood. Well, I will keep my comments brief, and I 100% support public access to Wi-Fi. If we have to throw it on light poles, if we have to put it on routers in the gym, so be it. So thank you for your presentation. Excited to work with my colleagues on getting this done. So thank you, Mayor.
I believe you're on mute, Mayor, but you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's really great work, and I think it's so great that you're pursuing grant funding and ways to pursue all of these projects that aren't going to impact the city's budget, but obviously produce something really great. I think my first comment is more directed to my colleagues and to staff, that, a lot of the things that we're working on incorporate elements of, we want car charging stations at Lane Park, we want to have cooling grounds. With this and LED, we want to have, all of these different things that I think it would be a good idea for us as a city to pursue larger goals. Like, what are our goals with that each of these projects are stepping us forward to? Like, how do we ensure the city of San Fernando is sustainable and resilient, and each of these pieces are contributing to it? I'm really grateful, NG, that all the work you've done. I've met some of your staff and they're really excellent. So I'm really glad you're our partner in this. For your Wi-Fi component, I'm a big proponent of I would like the city to have universal Wi-Fi. And looking at your map, there's obviously really huge gaps for a lot of our community. And I think, businesses, a lot of them are able to buy Wi-Fi. And so those corridors might not be as in need, especially when we think of, the realities of people working from home right now and all of these students learning from home and multiple students being on multiple laptops at one time. Even at my own home, when we're all using the same Wi-Fi, it gets very spotty. And so I think we should talk more about how do we get to universal Wi-Fi without the blackout spots, and something that is financially feasible. Potentially one of those could be partnering with, cell service agencies, I believe, have the ability to drop Wi-Fi. And there might be a way that becomes more cost efficient for the city. So I think just my general comments are, how can we talk a lot about visioning, right, in downtown, but we can have a vision for how we're going to be sustainable and resilient and provide this very basic service to all of our residents. And we should set forth those goals officially and then start to pursue them from there, because I think that'll help guide us in deciding how we're going to phase in through what projects to get to universal Wi-Fi. And then along with that, it would be great to have a timeline of what those options are and how we could slowly but surely get there. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Montanez?
Okay, so trying to understand this. Okay, so of the list that you had on all the improvements on the efficiency side, the energy efficiency side, on all city-owned facilities, City Hall, the parks, police department, all that. In order to do all of that, it's about $11.5 million. Is that what the estimate is right now? Okay, so okay, so 11.5 million to do those improvements that were listed. And so far, you're saying that the SCHIP money is the potential where the city has been selected as a potential awardee of those funds to do on-site generation or to do energy storage.
That the incentive was just for the energy storage. So just a component of the renewable system of solar and storage.
Okay, so do we have ideas of how much it would actually cost to do the entire system, or is that already included in that 11.5 million?
Yes, and let me sort of drill down a little bit, and thanks for the question. So as we often do these, we start with a blank sheet of paper, and we've identified, again, over these 80 measures or 80 opportunities and put a price tag to it. We also do the other part of the equation, which is how much energy will it save and what is that potential value to the city? So what will you see in reduction in your electric bill or your gas bill or the water bill? And the impact, the savings impact to the general fund. And then we start to match them up. So right now we feel that there's a program that not all of these programs can be, or these projects can be funded. That's where we're going to look for more and more of those incentive funds and the grants that are available. But ultimately, the goal is to present to the city enough funding and enough energy savings so we can create the paid from savings program, so that the savings that the city will see in the general fund and the other grants and rebates and incentives that we have, we can truly be a no upfront cost to the city for implementing these improvements. So that really is, that is our goal. Now, back to your specific question, yes, we do have a cost. We know what the cost is to implement solar at the city hall, at the parks, at the police department, at the police station. We know what it costs because we've developed these, and that's our business, is to provide these design, build, turnkey services. To do the lighting inside of all of the city facilities, to make these other improvements that we're recommending. And now, so we've got, there was the baseball analogy before, but we've got half the score. Now we need the other half, which is the funding component, so that we can put them together and bring forward, again, a paid from savings self-funding program.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now, is just saying, okay, we believe that we've got to go and do these 80 identified solutions for energy efficiency savings, but we want to prioritize and then just say, we know we can't do all 80 because that's an $11.5 million price tag.
Yeah.
But we are then going to work with you to have us actually help develop that cost associated with each project, cost savings, can it pay for itself with the savings, and do that financial analysis per project.
Yes.
Okay.
And we since we've been at this for quite a while,
yeah.
We'll of course have our recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And our recommendations are not only bringing our own experience, but it's feedback from the city. So to the extent that we can address through these energy savings projects, deferred maintenance issues, HVAC systems, those kind of things, that's what we try to do. So we try to just squeeze as much impact and benefit out of these programs as possible. And literally, leveraging the great savings of an LED lighting retrofit, you get great savings from that. You don't get that same level of savings from replacing an air conditioning unit, frankly, because of the cost of the HVAC system is very expensive relative to changing out a light bulb. So that's the key. That's sort of the magic in the sauce here, is to blend those projects so it makes sense. At the end of the day, we have a project that makes sense to the city and has that ultimate goal of being self-funded.
Yeah, I noticed that the only recommendation for HVAC improvements is at the police station. So are our systems relatively modern and up to date?
No, and that's a consequence of starting to go down through all of the buildings and all of the measures that we've identified, and seeing what can we do, what can we include in the program, at least initially in our first pass, to include in the program so that we could achieve that self-funding, that program, or the self-funding cash flow at the end of the day. And part of the other philosophy was, again, based on our experience, we can go through and cherry pick some of the older air conditioning systems throughout the city. But that means, we pick one at Recreation Park, and then City Hall, and then one at Police Department. One becomes sort of a piecemeal. So then we try to make a decision, and a recommendation. Let's see if we can just sort of tackle one building and the issues all in one building, so that city and city staff can check that building off the list. Yep, we've done it. We've taken care of everything for a long time. You don't need to go back to that building and start replacing rooftop units. So that's also the way we try to package these solutions in our scope.
Okay, so there is a possibility that the air conditioning systems, heating systems have to be upgraded in our other facilities. They're just not in this first tier of recommendations that's in that first 11.5 million estimate.
That is correct. Yep.
All right, got it. Okay, yeah, because that was surprising to me, because I know a lot of our buildings are older, but I wasn't sure whether or not we had upgraded the HVAC.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that those would be the highest energy savings, no? Versus like LEDs and are we trying to do like kind of the lower hanging fruit first?
Again, we capture the savings, the great savings from LEDs.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. The retrofit cost is lower compared to the energy savings that it generates. But it really is, yes, we do capture the energy savings. But if you were to look at it, for instance, the police department, it's 24/7 operation, but City Hall is 4 days a week, and then you get into sort of the operating hours of the parks, and the amount of cooling that's actually provided and the energy that's compared. When we go through the analysis, we establish the baseline. So we really put a benchmark of what the consumption is in the buildings, and then we do our analysis and we make all of these sort of engineering estimations on what the savings will be, and we compare that to the baseline. And so we want to make sure that we don't overstate the potential of the savings. And in some cases, some of these units are there, but they may not be running most of the time. So we want to make sure that when we're making that recommendation and we're setting an expectations of the savings, which we will guarantee, we want to make sure that it's accurate and we're not overstating and exaggerating the potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the energy storage, would the energy be produced by a solar PV or some other renewable energy, or is that storage just in general for?
Yeah, so everything is connected to the grid. So I want to make sure that it's clear. If when we put, let's say we're proposing solar and an energy storage system at the police department will still be connected to the utility grid. So everything will be able to run and operate in parallel, okay? During the day, when the solar is generating, because it is free energy, the systems and the controls that we put in place will be smart enough to know that if it's in the morning where electricity is still relatively inexpensive, what we're going to do is we're going to derive that free energy from the solar to charge the battery. But then we're going to get into a period of time during the day that electricity is more valuable if you go 100% and satisfy the building load. And if there's extra, you're actually going to spin the meter backwards and put it onto the grid. And for every kilowatt hour during that period of time, it's like deposits in the bank. Literally, it's cash in the bank. But then what happens at the end of the day is they shifted the time period, the most expensive, to 4 to 9 p.m. So the sun has gone down. The electricity costs have gone up to their highest amount. And that's when the battery discharges. That's when the battery says, okay, you still have a high air conditioning load. Just think of it, right? You know, a hot summer day, the sun is low, the building's heating up, and that's when your air conditioning tends to peak during that same 4 to 8 or 4 to 9 period of time. But that's when the battery stored energy can discharge to run the air conditioning systems and the other systems and keep that cost down. So it's a combination of things. It's a combination of the battery will get charged from the grid, and the battery will get also charged from the solar system, the PV system. And it really depends on the operation. It's a smart system. And it depends on a number of factors: the time of year, the day of the week, what the rate schedule is, the time of the day. So it's optimized for the maximum financial return to the city in the bills.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, does Edison have incentives on a feed-in tariff or anything else to support like a battery, a storage, or is it just right now just the state?
Well, the incentive comes from the state, and it's the CPUC, and the SCE is the administrator of that. But I would say the SCE sort of opportunity and contribution to this is allowing net metering. So on those days where we're generating, and there will be days, I mean, it's been designed this way, there will be days potentially where we're generating more electricity from the PV system than the building is using. So we will be spinning the meter backwards and getting that credit back to the system. So that would be SCE's sort of role in this. And then, of course, like I said, you're always connected to the utility company. When SCE shuts down, unless it's been designed, and that's something that we're looking at, and as it is configured, it's not necessarily the case in all locations. But what was I? Oh, when the utility shuts down, either unintentionally or planned through the PSPS events, these systems have the ability, with a little more investment, to actually operate the facilities. But under normal circumstances, when the utility goes down, by code and by requirement for safety, these systems have to go down. So you can't backfeed the utility grid in case there's a line person working on them, and that's a safety issue. So we're looking at those kind of opportunities as well. It's sorry to get into some details, but it's a little unfortunate because the two other applications that we applied for that didn't get conditional funding yet, fingers crossed, Las Palmas Park and Recreation Park. And we know that those are your designated summertime cooling centers, right? And that's when the PSPS events are. So the utility company has the potential of shutting the power off on a hot, windy day when you need the power the most at your parks. So again, fingers crossed, maybe in the next round of funding, they'll fund those projects, and we can look at the economics of those, and depending on the timing of this program, either include them or do standalone projects, because the funding will be good.
Thank you for that, because that was going to be one of my questions too, is because
Pardon me,
because
it's about 14 minutes now.
Okay, primarily because of extreme heat. That was the question I had in the PSPs, is like having the storage available there in those facilities, again, with seniors, vulnerable populations, you know, cooling centers. So thank you for answering that question. That was the other question I had. And then in general on the internet and broadband, like there is, I know, AB 14 in the legislature. That's dealing more with you know, longer term, you know, municipal broadband like funding, something that we should be tracking and looking at closely. If we move in a direction like what you're talking about, I mean, I definitely support this idea of some type of, universal access to internet. I know it's costly, expensive, but I also think that, if we do some analysis long-term to see, is there potentially a funding opportunity for the city, or economic opportunity for the city if it is municipally owned. I don't think it's in any city in California has actually done it yet, from what I understand, where it's the entire city that has internet availability, because it's not that easy yet. But I like that at least we can start with what you're talking about, which is these publicly owned light posts. At least it's an opportunity to start. But I would be interested to see if you and your team also does that kind of deeper analysis on a municipal, broadband, and that covers the entire city.
I'll have to get back to you. We definitely want to stay within sort of our lane and our capabilities. As an international company, we have done some of these citywide Wi-Fi projects in other parts of the world. We're starting to draw on some of that expertise, but something specific, like you mentioned AB 14, I'd have to look that up, honestly.
Yeah, it was just introduced in December.
Okay, it's time to allow the Vice Mayor to ask some questions.
Yeah, but thank
Vice
you.
Mayor?
Thank you, Tony,
Thank
for those responses. I really appreciate your thinking and thorough discussion on this.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, do you have some questions? You're on mute, Vice Mayor. Or maybe you're frozen. Hello, Vice Mayor.
I think she can't hear.
Oh, it's your turn. Unmute.
She may need to reconnect to audio because
Zoom is so much fun.
She's saying that she can't hear us, I believe.
Oh, she can't. She has to hear us.
Mayor, maybe if you want to give your comments, and I can
see if you could.
Yeah.
My comments is I feel that she's on. Are you okay now, Vice Mayor?
Oh,
yes.
It was my turn?
Yes, yes. You were on mute.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry.
You are the Vice Mayor.
Oh my God, I don't know where I was in La La Land for the moment.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. It was, I'm really happy that we were able to address these issues and that this was placed on the agenda. We do have 80 improvements that need to get done. And I think that we need to start, that it's time to start, and that I support that we staff's recommendation to purchase the battery storage units and paying the $30,000 application fee to get started on the improvements for the police facility and CNG stations. In terms of the Wi-Fi, I also support the Wi-Fi and in order for us to reach the digital divide in our community. So, and I like to see if it can start at Las Palmas Park. We can start there. It's a start. There's a lot to be done, and we want our entire community to have access to Wi-Fi, but we have to start someplace. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Mendoza. I should have said that. I don't have any questions for you. I liked your presentation very much. I have more of a question for Nick. Nick, I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be best if the ad hoc committee met and came back with a recommendation? Or what do you want us to approve tonight?
Yeah, and I want to just give a real brief sort of context on why tonight, why this is in front of you tonight. And a lot of it has to do with the self-generation incentive program. We call it an application fee, but really it's more of a reservation fee. because, ultimately when we move forward with the project, we would get that back as part of our rebate, eventually. So but that needed to be done, that needs to be done now in order to kind of save our spot. Because that's a pretty critical component of actually making a photovoltaic system, potentially feasible from a financial standpoint. So we wanted to bring that back tonight, but we figured it's been a long time since council has seen this. We are at a place where the engineering analysis is done. So really, it's about collecting the financing piece of it now. And obviously the Wi-Fi piece of it, we also wanted to get some additional direction since we're kind of in a post Measure SF world right now. So tonight was a good opportunity to give an update, get some feedback. And I think, obviously it sounds like there's a lot of support. And if we are approved to make the $30,000 reservation payment, then we will we will work with the Green City ad hoc to kind of just go over in a little bit more detail, and then we can come back, with specific recommendations. Quite frankly, most of the recommendations are going to be related to financing, because again, that's kind of the complicated piece on using the savings to then flip into a debt service, and there are different types of financing techniques. So that's the direction. If that's what we're kind of looking for tonight, and why tonight as opposed to 2 months from now, or 2 months ago. So that's all we're looking for tonight, is some general direction, but approval to kind of go forward on this SGIP program and put on our rebate incentive reservation fee, so that we don't lose our spot. And we do still have the option to kind of move forward with the photovoltaic system with kind of a battery storage component.
Okay. Councilmember Pacheco, would you like to make a motion?
Can I just have a clarifying question so that I understand? Okay, so the 30,000 is for both the solar PV and the battery storage, or is it just the battery storage? I understood that it was just the battery storage.
It is just the battery storage.
Okay, so the item, because I think I just heard different comments from I think the last 3 people said it different. So I got confused, and now I think I got it. So I was thinking it properly, right? So it's 30,000 from the SGIP, California Public Utilities Commission application to get about $500,000, a little bit over $500,000, to invest into the possibility for the energy storage at the police station. Correct?
And the CNG station.
And the CNG station. Okay.
Right, 2 locations.
Okay, and then we still don't know the cost of the actual battery storage. So all we're doing, $500,000 will fund the entire thing, or may not fund the entire project.
We have an estimate of what the cost of the system is, and it's about 1/3 to half of the cost of the battery system. So sorry, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. So it will go a long way to pay for some of the costs of the battery storage system. What it is just for the battery system. That's what
I understood. Okay, that's what I understood. Okay,
yeah.
So just that, we're not talking about the Wi-Fi. We're not
Right.
voting on any of that.
Right.
So today, what we're voting on is just to say, okay, yes, $30,000 to hold the 500 plus from the Public Utilities Commission for the battery storage potential at 2 locations, the police department, CNG station. And we don't know yet exactly the cost of the energy battery storage, but it could be upwards of $1 million, $2 million or so, right?
Yes, and it would be packaged together in a comprehensive package. Yes.
Okay, but it doesn't commit us. It doesn't commit us tonight to say then we have to come up with that additional money. That's going to be $1 million plus, or does it?
No. So tonight is just to say, hey, we have this opportunity for about $580,000 reservation. We need 30 grand. Your approval for the $30,000 to hold that $580,000. And that is a piece of that bigger financial pie that we need and puzzle that we need to solve for. Okay. So we want to just lock that in. And then when we have the full picture, to be able to come back to you with, here's how we figured it out, here's some options, here's some funding options, and here's a strategy, and lay them out for you to decide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Pacheco, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move the item if your colleagues' concerns are all good.
I think they're good. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from the mayor. Roll call, please. Or vice mayor?
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
Mayor Ballin.
Yes. The motion passes. And I'm just curious, Nick, so when will the ad hoc meet?
We'll reach out to the ad hoc and schedule something within the next few weeks. There isn't a critical time period because, I think Tony will tell you, we still need to kind of put together some of the puzzle pieces related to financing. Really, the component is just sending out the reservations. So now that that's done, we have a little bit more.
Vice Mayor Mendoza. Yes.
Okay, this is weird. No background noise for us. Thank you, Nick.
Sure.
We are at 9:10, and I'm wondering, I want to get the temperature of the room here because I think some of these items might take us a little bit of time, and maybe if we just narrow it down to one item for now and adjourn the meeting to Wednesday, will that work, or do you want to hang in there till we finish all the items?
I personally would like to, maybe just postpone or take one of the items. I think it's probably best, since these are, very important. That's my 2 cents.
I think the best item for us to do is item 11, the discussion of the virtual background. The other items are going to be pretty heavy conversations. So
And related, yeah.
Right, and they're all related. Is everyone in agreement with that? Councilmember Montanez, are you okay with that?
I'm okay staying on, but if the council needs to adjourn, then I'll respect that.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez?
I feel the same way.
Okay, and Councilmember Mendoza?
No, we can have a meeting on Wednesday. I think they're going to be pretty lengthy items. The ones that are remaining.
And
Okay.
just so staff, just a bit of context. So if we do, go through item 11 and then adjourn to Wednesday, there is a Transportation and Safety Commission meeting on Wednesday at 7 p.m. So we would need to be either postpone that and start that Transportation and Safety Commission a little late if the adjourn meeting goes late, or if we start at 5 or 5:30 on Wednesday, just note that we'd have an hour and a half or 2 hours until the Transportation Safety Commission.
Yeah, can we start earlier on Wednesday than 6? Is that okay?
We can start, City Attorney, I believe if we can adjourn to any time, we just would have to make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Right, that was more of a question to the colleagues here about their availability.
I'm good with 5 o'clock. Councilmember Montanez?
On Wednesday, I am not done until about 6 o'clock or so. And I can't reschedule. And so I can join after that.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez, what's a good start time for you?
I'm available anytime after 5.
Okay, Vice Mayor Mendoza?
I'm available anytime.
Okay, the majority has it for 5 o'clock. So we will hear item 11 at this time, discussion and consideration regarding the use of virtual backgrounds.
And then,
during-
Madam Mayor, can you just state for the public the 2 items that will be discussed on Wednesday, just to give people the heads up?
Oh, the 2 items that will be discussed. City Clerk, would you go ahead and discuss, mention the two items?
Sure. There's actually three items.
Three items.
So that's three.
Okay.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about my glasses are giving me problems. I'm using my old ones. So go ahead, City Clerk.
Okay. This is item 8, the discussion and consideration of the fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant funds provided through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act and the fiscal year 2021-22 Community Development Block Grant Program year funding allocation. The next item would be number 9, discussion and consideration of potential programs for a local COVID-19 stimulus package for San Fernando residents and businesses. And the third item, which is item 10, discussion and presentation of each department's recommended city council priorities for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 proposed budget process.
Thank you very much. And now we're on item 11, and the Vice Mayor placed this item on the agenda, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I placed this for consideration from council. I placed this item on the agenda now that we're doing the virtual meetings, and we expect to continue doing them for the next 3, 4, 5 months. So city council meetings, this would affect possibly city council meetings, commission meetings, and any city business meetings. And I would recommend that we have a standard background to prevent any potential controversy. So with that, I'll leave it with Mr. Kimball to continue.
Sure, thank you, Vice Mayor. And this kind of came up, there were, it came up on a staff level as well, in that, obviously, from a professional, to remain professional, we want there to be some sort of standardization, as the Vice Mayor had mentioned. Obviously, depending on where we're broadcasting from, or just the fact that Zoom allows virtual backgrounds. There are any number of options, and I think obviously when we're representing the city, we have a certain kind of professional standard that we want to maintain. And so what I was talking about on a staff level, and I think the Vice Mayor also kind of noticed it, on a commission level, is potentially giving all of the having some sort of policy that just kind of states that we want to make sure that we maintain a professional appearance, and then has some sort of standard for a background. From a staff perspective, we could definitely develop and provide 6 or 7 standard virtual backgrounds if people wanted to use those as their background. Conversely, if they don't, if people don't want to use a background, just some general some general guidelines on what would be in the background, to just make sure that there's nothing that could be potentially construed as offensive to any group of people that would be in the anyone's particular background. I just want to be able to share an example, and again, these are some things that we kind of had talked about earlier, so I have a little bit of seem a little bit prepared, but this is because we were already talking about it. So like we could develop a background, that this is just an example, Transportation Safety Commission. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Here's another one. We could, just sort of have a general background. It's got the city logo on it. And then you could even use, we could make these pictures available if anyone wanted to use these kind of city landmarks, as sort of a background for meetings. And this could all just be part of the idea. Is we just would make it part of a policy to standardize. If you use a virtual background, this is what it would be. If you're on a city commission or a council meeting, what are backgrounds, what kind of an acceptable background would look like. And it would just be, so tonight, if council wanted to direct staff, it would just be direction to develop a policy and bring it back for future consideration by council.
Okay. Councilmember Pacheco, any questions?
No, yeah, multiple options is probably fine, and as long as it's just strongly recommended and not compelled, especially at our level, I think that's fine. No other comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yeah, I agree. I think this would be helpful. I'm gonna be really, I think a lot of people like Richard's cat, so they'll be disappointed if you start to use the background, but hopefully it'll make it to the guidelines. No further comments.
Councilmember Montanez?
I mean, just a basic question to Rich. Do we know First Amendment issue on what people could pay?
Yeah, that's the first thing that kind of came to my mind. I think there are some issues we may want to study, because I think, individuals do have a right of free expression. I think what we're probably trying to attack mostly, if I may, there have been unfortunately instances of folks using Zoom to display offensive or perhaps graphic imagery that probably is not appropriate for a family audience. So I think to the extent that we're focusing on things like that and less about what people choose to identify with, that would be something worth looking into, because I think there is that fine line between wanting to create a wholesome environment for viewers, but also not treading on individual freedom of expression, which I think is a good point.
And these are just options. It doesn't mean we're going to not see Richard's cat or Nick's cat. Do you have any more questions, Councilman?
That's asking for a royalty now.
Yeah. I would be okay if it's an option, and then if it's, mandated, then, Rich could go through the legal analysis of the First Amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to see the policy. I think we'd all just prepare the policy and let's read it and give them additional direction or tweak the policy. So Vice Mayor, would you like to make the motion? Or just give direction? This is direction only, right?
Yeah, we don't necessarily need, if you wanted to make a motion, direction to bring back up.
Yeah, I'd like to give direction to staff to develop a policy and provide us with the backgrounds that we just saw. I think they were really nice pictures, and then we can discuss it more at length at another meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you. You have your direction, Nick. And at this time, okay, my eyes are not working as well as I'd like them to. The time is now 9:21. At this time, I want to observe that we have a number of items of business remaining on tonight's agenda, which will take some time to get through. This being the case, I would like to move to adjourn today's regular meeting to an adjourned regular meeting to be held this coming Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2021 at 5 p.m. pursuant to Government Code Section 54955 and 54955.1. As part of my motion, I ask that all public hearings scheduled to be heard tonight be continued to the adjourned regular meeting of February the 3rd, 2021, and that the city clerk post all notices required by Government Code Section 54955 and 54955.1. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Okay. I have a second. Is that Vice Mayor Mendoza's second?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez,
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
and Mayor Ballin.
Yes. The motion passes. I will see everyone Wednesday night. Thank you very much for a good meeting. I appreciate it. Oh, yes. Yes.
We have council comments.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, the next meeting. We're learning. Thank you very much. See everybody Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Thank you.